across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Ah, there you are. Where have you been? More to the point, where have I been? I've been on breakfast, getting up at 3:30 in the morning. So good to be back, folks. Good to be back with you. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your genial host all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate. Get involved, get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Wednesday, May the 28th. Here's what's coming up. What can be done about big spending speaker Sir Lindsay Long-Haul Hoyle? The 270,000 quid or so of taxpayers' money he blew on luxury jet setting around the world in 3 years of living expensively. The £7 million it cost to refurbish his fabulous parliamentary apartment. The £36,000 portrait of him that now graces Westminster's corridors of power. The 300 or so gifts he has been given by visiting dignitaries and, of course, kept. And now we learn that in the past 2 years, his staff wages bill has soared from £550,000 to more than £1 million. In 2023, Labour MP for Chorley Hoyle had 12 minions labouring in his office. Now, the number of workers toiling for the Speaker has rocketed to 21. What the hell do they all do? No MPs will dare say a word about this extraordinary situation, while Hoyle apparently redefines the Speaker's role from sitting in that big chair shouting, "Order!" to one of international diplomacy, zooming round the planet, telling foreigners how important he thinks it is to back Ukraine against Russia. Flying first and business class, hiring chauffeurs, and even on one occasion a private jet on a mission to promote, apparently, speaker-led democracies in glamorous far-off places, taking his underlings with him at our expense. Since our spineless politicians are too scared to raise this worrying issue in case Sir Lindsay doesn't call them to make the little speeches in the House of Commons that they think will improve their fantastic careers, get them noticed, get them into the cabinet, all that kind of stuff. Because of that, they're too scared to raise this worrying issue. What can be done to just stop Hoyle? 0344499 1000. In other news, I'll ask why Merseyside police vehicles are adorned with woke slogans about Black History Month. Well, I'm all for Black History Month, of course. But what's it got to do with fighting crime and catching crooks? 0344499 1000. And let me ask you this, still with the police. If you walked into a care home to find a 92-year-old bloke with one leg sitting in a chair holding a butter knife, would you, A, just go and take it off the silly old codger, or B, smash him around with a truncheon, pepper spray him, and then blast him with a taser gun? It's A, right? So why did two coppers take the latter somewhat over-the-top approach? 0344499 1000. The poor old guy died 22 days later. These heroes, this dynamic police duo, were today acquitted of actual bodily harm, found not guilty by a jury of assault. But honestly, folks, where is the common sense in what these rozzers did? He was 92. He had one leg, for God's sake. 0344499 1000. Also tonight, the Labour MP who tweeted that the social media posts supporting Nigel Farage and his tax break announcements, there were thousands of them, were the work of Russian bots. Not real tweets, they were the work of Russian bots. Does the excitable member for Dover, Mike Tapp, have any evidence for this serious allegation? Or is he just spreading the type of unproven misinformation his leader, Keir Starmer, so vehemently disapproves of? Which is it? 03444991000. We've asked Mike to come on and explain himself, but astonishingly, really surprisingly, we haven't heard back from him. So we asked him again. We haven't heard back from him. So, Mike, if you're watching, tell us all about the Russian bots. Or did you just make that up? 03444991000. Plus, in an hour, I'll be joined by Reform UK's new mayor for Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins, after Nigel Farage's speech and that press conference yesterday. Lots to talk about. 03444991000. And finally, how the Ministry of Defence spaffed, wait for it, £200 million, 200 million quid on planes and swish hotels for military staff and civil servants in just 1 year. Meanwhile, the military rank and file, our armed forces, dwell often in accommodation that is riven with rats, black mould, dilapidated. They have to live like that while the MOD spends a fortune flying the top brass around the world, staying in the most expensive hotels. Something wrong in that picture, don't you think? 03444991000. And I'll ask the question, is Jeremy Clarkson right to say that Britain has fallen off a cliff, that nothing is working, and that socialism is to blame? Is he right to point the finger at Keir Starmer? What do you think? 03444991000. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday night together. And back in the old routine, so I'm pleased about that, and very pleased that that old routine includes, on a Wednesday night, for the first hour from 7 until 8, the excellent company of Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good evening, Kev. Have you enjoyed your little change of routine?
Yeah, I love doing breakfast, but getting up at 3:30 in the morning does leave a little bit to be desired. Apart from that, though, it was great. But it's good to be back here, and we've got a lot to talk about. And let's kick off with, there's so many issues tonight that I think you and I should get quite worked up about. I mean, tasering a 92-year-old man, two coppers. I mean, let's hold our fire there. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But we need to go back to my friend Long Haul Lindsay Hoyle, because this is getting ridiculous, and I'm afraid that we cannot rely on our spineless politicians to say anything about this. This guy's spending, is an issue for great concern in my view. As we know, we've already covered this story at length. Over 3 years, he spent about £270,000, way over £250,000, flying around the globe, something like 19 trips, always to glamorous places, staying in very expensive hotels, some of them 900 quid a night, going out for expensive meals, charging it to the taxpayer, hiring chauffeur-driven limousines. When he went to Montserrat in the Caribbean, he even hired a private jet. He says that it's very important that he does all this because he is on an international diplomatic mission to sell the wonders of speaker-led democracy to the world. And he also thinks that it's his job as Speaker. He doesn't say it's just his job, which his real job is sitting in that chair going, order. He thinks it's his job to go round the world telling foreigners that he thinks they should all join us in backing Ukraine against Russia. I don't know what on earth that has to do with the Speaker. The Speaker's role is not one of international diplomacy. So all of that we have worried about already. We have highlighted it. And I know the audience are going, what the hell is going on here? He's just some MP for Chorley. Why is he spending all this taxpayers' money living the high life? Well, now Oh, by the way, he also, over 3 years, accepted 300 gifts from visiting dignitaries, nearly all of which he kept. He also spent £7 million of our money refurbishing his luxury Westminster apartment. And, again, on taxpayers' expense, there is a £36,000 portrait of the great man hanging in the Westminster corridors of power. So all of this, in my view, is extraordinary, and I wish there was at least one MP or a few MPs who would stand up and say, on behalf of the British taxpayer, Mr. Hoyle, or Sir Lindsay, as we must call you, can you explain all of this? But none of them will do this because they rely on old Sir Lindsay to call them to make their little speeches, the little speeches in Parliament that they think will vault them to the high position in the cabinet that they all deserve. So if you get on the wrong side of the Speaker, he won't call you to speak. That's why they're all staying silent. Now we learn that since 2023, in the last 2 years, when he had a staff in 2023 of 550. Sorry, not that many. Yeah. He had a staff of 12, costing £550,000 a year. Quite a lot, if you ask me. That number of staff has gone up to 21, and his staff bill, the wages bill for people in the Speaker's office, is now more than £1 million. I mean, we won't dwell now on what it is, what the hell it is that those 21 people do, but this guy's expenditure with this new revelation, I think, is a scandal. The real scandal here is that apart from saying it's very important that I go around the world selling democracy, you know, the Speaker's role is to attend conferences and all this kind of claptrap, he won't really explain why he has turned the Speaker's role into something astronomically expensive, astronomically more expensive than any Speaker before him. We've got a problem here, haven't we?
Well, I think what's happened is Lindsay Hoyle has basically completely redefined the job of Speaker and has effectively created a whole new sort of Whitehall department with himself as a kind of pseudo cabinet minister, but answerable to basically nobody. I mean, it's a wonderful job that he's created.
He's created for himself. I mean, yes.
I seriously think this is a way better job than being Prime Minister, because you seem to be able to just go wherever you like, and you've got a massive team and you're basically unaccountable. Now, I happen to think Lindsay Hoyle is fundamentally a really good guy, and you and I may differ over this.
Well, unless he explains himself, I'm fundamentally differing with you. I mean, I don't see what in what I just said makes him a good guy. I mean, he won't explain it apart from a few perfunctory sort of spokesman's statements. He won't really explain it. So if he won't explain it, why is he a good guy? He's spending a lot of our money without explaining it, redefining this role to give himself a rather nice lifestyle.
I wasn't saying that he's a good guy because of, sort of almost in spite of the things that you live. So, I mean, look, I've reported on many speakers, and I don't know why it is that so many of them turn out to be absolutely ghastly. I mean, John Bercow really took it to the next level in his meddling with Brexit and his quite clear agenda to make it as difficult as possible to honour the result of the referendum. And people will remember how absolutely dreadful that was, because the Speaker is in such a powerful position in Parliament. You know, they really can decide whether something, a grand piece of legislation or plan fails or succeeds. You know, they hold that in their hands. So Bercow was in a terrifyingly powerful position at the most sensitive of times. And Michael Martin, Gorbals Mick, many years ago, he was really unspeakable. Unspeakable.
The unspeakable speaker. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
So, relative to these people, I really like Lindsay Hoyle personally. He is a decent man, and I think he does the job. Setting aside the expenses thing, which I know is the subject of what we're talking about.
Doesn't make him that makes him sort
he
of.
Does his job really fairly as a speaker.
Why did he tell MPs that they couldn't discuss Southport and the suspect after?
Do you know what? I think I came on this show and I think I indicated just how unhappy he was about being put in that position.
Well, he didn't have to say it, did he?
He really, I think he was in an extreme...
Being told by the Prime Minister, so he's not biased towards Labour then?
I actually don't think he is biased towards Labour.
Well,
no.
yeah, but he sort of was there. He was helping the Prime Minister out, wasn't he?
Oh, I think there's more of that. More to. There are things.
He shouldn't have done that, Isabel. He should not have done that.
There are things
he should not have told MPs not to discuss the Southport suspect. That's not his job to do that. If they want to discuss it, they can. Parliamentary privilege.
I don't think it was at all happy.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So look, you and I don't have to agree on everything to have a fun discussion.
I think you're basically with me, aren't you? With the, I mean, I'm not necessarily.
I think it would be okay if that was actually the job description from the beginning. If the job was...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is what you do, and you're basically like a kind of foreign secretary, but sort of unaccountable. You're a kind of extra ambassador, because that's what he's turned it into.
Yeah.
And he probably does it very well. And I think the problem is that isn't the job, or never was the job. And we're all sitting here seeing the cost of that role that he's created for himself ballooning. And I agree with you that is problematic. Where perhaps we differ slightly is you saying that MPs are spineless for not speaking up about this.
Why doesn't someone say something?
Because it's really damn difficult. Because
no, they don't say anything in case Lindsay doesn't pick them to make their little speeches. They're all terrified of him, and you know it.
I'm not denying that.
Well, I think that's pathetic, isn't it?
No, it isn't, because as an MP, you've got to be able to make what you're calling those little speeches. Those little speeches are really important. This is your chance as an MP to participate in the parliamentary process. I mean, of course, you can do your bit in some obscure committee of, secondary review of some clause of legislation no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
But being in the parliamentary debate is what matters to MPs.
I agree with that. But so in pursuit of that, all of these MPs are prepared to completely overlook serious allegations that the Speaker is misusing public funds. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but these are the allegations. They've appeared all over the press, and you're saying that it's absolutely fine that every MP is prepared to overlook these very serious charges because they've got to make their little speaches. That's not right. Is there something wrong with that situation?
What I'm saying is that they're not, quote, little speeches.
Yeah,
they are what MPs are employed to do. And secondly,
make little speeches. Go on.
What I'm not saying is that it's absolutely fine. What I'm saying is I understand.
So do I.
Why
Absolutely.
it's so difficult for them.
No,
and, I'm going to declare an interest, by the way. My partner is an MP, and I understand the importance of being able to speak in Parliament. Your constituents judge you if you are invisible and inaudible in Parliament. So it is very difficult for all MPs, whatever their party affiliations, to take on the Speaker. And perhaps someone's going to be brilliantly brave and do it, Kev, and then we can cheer them on. But what I'm trying to give our listeners is some context here.
You're talking about practical realities. I totally understand what you're saying. So this situation is not acceptable. And I do understand why MPs think, well, if I lash out at the Speaker, I'll never be heard again. I get that. That is not an acceptable situation. The problem we have here is there is no system of checking the Speaker. The Speaker Speaker is like, you know, the Lord, the God of all he surveys. There is no way of criticising him because the MPs are too scared. There is no mechanism to criticise him. And we have very serious charges here that public money is being wasted by this guy. As I say, I'm stressing, I'm not saying those charges are true. I'm not saying that Sir Lindsay Hoyle cannot justify what he's doing. But these are serious charges, and we have had no proper explanation from the Speaker. Frankly, as I say, it is all round a very unsatisfactory situation. But let's leave that controversial issue lying there. We'll go to break now, Isabel. And I know we're going to agree on the two police stories we're going to cover next. Stick around. I'll read the Speaker's statement after these messages.
I do not condone drug taking or encourage it in any way, shape or form. In fact, most drug takers that I've come across are the most tiresome and boring people imaginable. But this proposal is doing partly the right thing for exactly the wrong reason. What we need to do, and I'm sure you're going to disagree with me, is we need to legalise and regulate every single illegal drug.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Let's talk about the police, Isabel. In a little while, we'll talk about Merseyside police, of course, have been embroiled in that shocking situation in Liverpool after the carnage of a couple of nights ago. We'll talk about them in a second. But first of all, let's talk about this shocking incident today. Well, I say today. Two coppers acquitted, found not guilty of actual bodily harm, of assaulting a victim. This guy is 92 years old. He's in a care home and he's holding a little butter knife. Trust me, we're not talking zombie or machete here. It's a little, you know, we can play it now. We're playing it now. If you're not watching, old guy in check shirt sitting with one leg. He's 92 years old. And the cops are telling him to put the knife down. Put the knife down, put it down. Douglas was his name. Now they're holding a taser. Anyway, to cut a long story short, what they do with this old boy, one leg, 92 years old, tiny little butter knife. What would we all do? I know what I'd do. I'd just walk over and say, give me the knife, you silly old sod. You know, it's as simple as that. Instead, they beat him up with a truncheon, they spray him with pepper spray, and then they taser him. 22 days later, the poor old guy died. Look at this. Look at this. What my question to you now? They were acquitted. The police complaints panel. They are now going to hold an inquiry. Charging them with gross misconduct. I was saying earlier that this situation throws me into a quandary because I don't like the idea of coppers being prosecuted for what they do in the line of duty. I think we've got to think about this. And I really don't like when coppers are found not guilty in our courts of law, but the Independent Police Complaints Office of IPSO, whatever it's called, decide, well, we're still going to try you, put you on trial for gross misconduct. So these two, although they've been acquitted in a court of law, they will be held up for gross misconduct by the police force. Now, as I say, I don't like this situation, but what on earth were they thinking? Where is the common sense? A 92-year-old man with one leg sitting in a chair holding a knife that's about as big as my thumb. They beat him up with a truncheon, they spray him with pepper spray and then taser him. Where is the common sense in that?
Kev, I actually feel quite almost sick watching that footage. I really genuinely cannot believe that grown men, physically able men, would do that.
I think it's a man and a woman, actually. Yeah,
a really old, confused person who's incarcerated in a care home and trapped in a whatever chair he's in because he's not very mobile, quite clearly. I just genuinely am completely staggered at the total lack of judgment displayed by those police officers. You say it was a man and a woman. Yeah. I tell you, I'd have had no fear walking up and sitting on the bed next to that guy, just having a chat with him. Why is he brandishing the knife? I mean, what can he actually do with it? If you approached him and just try to gently talk to him and offer him a cup of tea or whatever it is. That guy was no physical danger to those officers. He can't really realistically rush out of his chair and chase them around the room with a knife.
What are they worried about as well? That he might hop away.
I mean, for goodness sake, you know, in my view, I don't know whether there's a case for court action or not. You know, I don't know whether the relatives of this poor old gentleman are saying that he basically died as a result of that trauma. Do you know if that is the case?
Well, it was 22 days later. I don't think there's a direct link, but you know, 92 years old, those tasers, they don't half put a jolt through your heart. And if your heart is 92 years old, it maybe is not that surprising that he died 22 days later. Now, what these two coppers, they were PC Rachel Comoto and PC Stephen Smith. This was at a residential care home in St Leonards-on-Sea near Hastings in Sussex. Poor old guy's called Donald Burgess. What I think they were doing, Isabel, is they were doing it completely by the book. This is what you do. Give up your knife. If you don't give up that knife, I will have to taser you, etc., etc. You know, bugger the book. Go over, take the knife off him and tell him to stop being such a problem.
And this is the problem that I have, and I think is on display far too often from our police. They seem incapable of exercising any discretion over what their training has taught them. You know, for example, you know, don't go into that pool of water to rescue that drowning boy because it might be too dangerous for you. You know, they seem to have no ability, too many of them seem to have no ability to exercise common sense or discretion in the particular circumstances in which they find themselves. It was clearly totally inappropriate to taser that guy, to do what they did to that guy, and for the inability to show any judgment, I think that they would probably, if not lose their job, should be confined to back office duties.
Yeah, as I say, what I find uncomfortable about this is I want to support the police as they do their difficult job, but so many of these so many of these coppers make it so difficult.
They really do.
Which brings us to Liverpool and the shocking scenes that unfolded the other night there. Obviously big questions being asked of the Merseyside police about how that people mover managed to get through the cordoned off barrier into the crowded scene, and therefore we know what happened next. 65 people badly injured, 4 of them on the critical list, kids, a baby. It was terrible scenes. We're just fortunate that no one died. So big questions to be asked of the Merseyside police. How did that people mover get into that area? They're saying looks like it tailgated an ambulance. I don't think that's that doesn't get you off the hook. That's no good. But I haven't seen any evidence that it tailgated an ambulance, but all of that will come off out in the wash, I am sure. And I think generally it looked to me as if the Merseyside cops did as good a job as could be expected. I applauded their release of the details of the suspect swiftly saying it was a white man, 53 years old. In other words, trying to dispel potential misinformation and those kind of rumours that spread on social media. So I think, largely speaking, they did a decent enough job. But some people who were around this chaos, this carnage, parked outside, couldn't help but notice there's all these Merseyside police vans, we'll show you one, and they're all and police vehicles, all adorned with huge sort of artwork, Black Lives Matter. There it is, Black Lives Matter. There's a quote there from a former slave woman, a campaigner. Look at that. So all the police vans like that. So, I don't want to be sort of a misery guts or churlish, but my question, we actually put a question today to the Merseyside police. The big question being, how much money have you spent decorating your police vehicles with this woke sloganising about Black Lives Matter and indeed anything else? These woke sloganising. How much have you spent? Well, they won't tell us that. We're going to put a freedom of information request in, apparently. Trust me, coppers, we will. But they did give us a statement about why they're painting all these vehicles at great expense with woke slogans. Here we go. Ready? The artwork on the vans is part of an art competition for primary schools, which started in 2021 as a way of engaging primary school children of all ages with Merseyside Police and our partners. I have forwarded the press release. They gave us a big, long press release about how important Black History Month is, how they launched this competition for primary schools back in May. As I said, I don't want to be a misery guts, but why? Why did they launch these coppers? Why did they launch a primary school art competition to stick woke slogans on police vehicles, to engage with the police and our partners? Why? In what way does that help the police catch criminals? In what way does that help the police fight crime? Would that money that they spent on all that woke painting, wouldn't that be better spent on a crime fighting, on catching the bad guys? What is going on?
Well, I'm happy to be the misery guts here and say that I don't think there's any place whatsoever for having a big sign saying Black History Month on a police van. I'm not a fan of Black History Month. I see far too much about it in our hospitals, for example. What on earth are our hospitals doing, spending any time and resources setting up stands and celebrations for Black History Month? They are hospitals or healthcare providers, not educationalists or culture providers. And the same goes for the police. They should be focusing on catching criminals, not promoting Black History Month. I don't see the place for Black History Month on the side of police vans. What is the police policing? What does that have to do with celebrating Black history. I genuinely do not know what that's all about. I don't want to see it. I find it ridiculous.
Well, police resources, money, as in taxpayers' money, could surely be better spent on helping the police do their damn job. Engaging with primary schools isn't their job. How many police vehicles do you see emblazoned with rainbow LGBTQ colours and so on and so forth? Now, Merseyside Police, who of course, this is the police force that screwed up on a major level the Southport horror, dealing in misinformation, not telling us that. They made a massive mess of that. Now we get this. They're also the police force that a couple of years ago, 2022 I think it was, sent out into the metropolis of Liverpool, all over, big vans with massive placards on saying, being offensive is an offence. Now, the Chief Constable, the then Chief Constable of Liverpool, Merseyside Police, otherwise known as the Keystone Cops, he was asked, he said, somebody said, look, Mr. Copper, Mr. Top Cop, there's a bit of a problem here. What's that? He said, being offensive isn't an offence, isn't it? No, it's not. They had to apologise, pull all those placards down, because they didn't even know the law. What is wrong with Merseyside Police?
An awful lot, I think, but it's not unique to Merseyside
It's
Police.
not, to be fair.
The leaders of these organisations just seem to be too uneducated or stupid to be able to. Once again, it's about judgment, isn't it? And knowledge. I mean, don't put up a big thing saying being offensive is an offence. I mean, really, you and I'd be in trouble, wouldn't we?
I'd be doing life.
Yeah.
Whole life term.
I mean, it's sort of funny, but it really sort of isn't, because unless they're called out on this stuff, you find that they're sending 8 people or 10 people to someone's house after someone's complained that they were offended by something.
Yeah,
and you've got to also blame the last government that allowed the kind of mushrooming of this hate crime legislation and the misinterpretation of it or abuse of it. Yeah. And the whole way the legislation was drafted, if you feel you've been the victim of a hate crime, that's enough to say that you are a victim. I mean, it's completely patently absurd and going to lead to all sorts of unintended consequences.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The whole thing up. I just bin the whole thing.
Yeah. Woke policing is one of the scourges of our time. These idiots, as you say, usually sorely undereducated police chiefs, the chief constables, dim as a Tok-H lamp, most of them, imposing this widespread wokery on all us, knocking on people's doors and saying, you put out a problematical tweet a year ago. I mean, come on, get out there and catch the bad guys. Never mind about Black History Month. Never mind about LGBTQ rights. Go and do your damn job. Catch some bad guys. Fight crime. When we come back, we're going to talk about some more cops, actually, who have been asking for more money from the government. We'll talk about that when we come back, Isabel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk quickly, if we can. I'm still with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Today, 6 police chiefs and MI5 have told Keir Starmer that his pledges, Isabel, to halve knife crime. He did say, I will halve knife crime in this country. And also to halve the number of attacks on women and girls. Be nice if he pledged to actually get rid of them altogether, wouldn't it? But
yeah, completely.
Yeah, but he said he'd bring them down by 50%. Woohoo! Anyway, quite rightly and quite understandably, these coppers, including Sir Mark Rowley, the not very good head of the Metropolitan Police here in London, have said, look, you know, there's a problem here. We're not really going to be able to halve knife crime and halve violent attacks on women while you're busy letting out dangerous, often sexually violent criminals by the thousands of them being let out of prison. Also, they have pointed out to the Prime Minister, you want to sort of crack down on crime, but meanwhile your Labour government has just announced effectively that hardly anyone will ever get sent to jail. That isn't going to help either. So punishments won't fit the crime. They're letting out thousands of very dangerous prisoners. They've got a point, haven't they, these police chiefs? I mean, I think in this initiative, it's standard issue public sector chiefs begging for more money. They're saying, if you don't give us any more money, we can't bring your pledges about. But they're also saying what you've done here, letting out all these crooks, these violent sexual criminals sometimes, and also promising everyone that pretty much anything you do won't get you a prison sentence, is making our job impossible. It's true, isn't it?
It's been a complete disaster, and it's set the wrong tone from the very, very early days of Starmer's ill-fated, frankly, totally disastrous administration, letting the doors open of those prisons in the first few weeks of his premiership, allowing all sorts of horrendous characters to just flood out and jump into the Lamborghinis and spray champagne around. What kind of message did that send to the criminal underworld, and also to all the very many petty opportunists, thieves and other offenders who are now being told almost on a weekly basis that it's unlikely that they'll be locked up for doing anything. You know, the threshold for actually getting locked up has become incredibly high, unless you happen to be someone like Lucy Connolly and say the wrong things in a tweet. You know, otherwise the threshold is unbelievably high. You know, you can offend and offend and offend and offend, and I could carry on saying that for another perhaps 30 or 40 times, and you may still not be locked up because we just don't have the capacity. I mean, one of the only good things I've heard this government say recently is that they're going to build more jails, but I don't know how long that's going to take, or whether they'll even still be in government when it happens.
Exactly right. I think they're pledging to build 3 more, but I mean, this is this government all over. Pledges, announcements, vowing to do things. What we need is something done right now, and building prisons in 10 years' time isn't going to solve any current problems anytime soon. Very quickly before we move on, still speaking about irresponsible elected idiots, Sadiq Khan, the eco-obsessed fool who is London Mayor, which actually makes him in charge of the London Metropolitan Police. He's now calling for the decriminalisation of cannabis possession because he says that to arrest people, to harass people about possessing this drug is not good for maintaining cordial relationships between ethnic communities and the police. Well, there's 2 things I'd like to say about it. I think that's a great idea, actually, Isabel. I can expand on it. Let's legalise stabbing, robbing, sexual assault and beating people up, because That would reduce friction, wouldn't it, between the criminals and coppers? It's ridiculous. The other thing I'd like to say about it is, I've heard it all day, you know, all over the airwaves. Oh, should we legalise cannabis? Should we decriminalise it? It's a spurious, it's a pointless debate. I could step outside this office now, as you well know, whole place, all of London stinks of dope, stinks of cannabis. So it's already decriminalised. No one is getting nicked for dope. No one is getting arrested, having their collars felt for cannabis, for grass. So what Khan said is already in position. But I don't think it is a responsible thing for the man who's supposed to run the Metropolitan Police to say.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a terrible idea to decriminalise it. I did look into this in real detail some years ago and was pretty open-minded about it at that time. And I went out, spent some days in Seattle and Washington in the US, where it is legal. And I can't tell you the extent to which that put me off. I mean, that place is an absolute dump. That
used to be lovely, Seattle.
You smell it everywhere. And I'm not exaggerating when I say there are zoned out people just wandering the streets looking a total mess. There's homeless people everywhere. They all look completely spaced out because they can be. And it really, really put me off, the whole idea of decriminalisation. As you say, effectively, it has been decriminalised on the streets of London. I smell it everywhere. I see people quite openly smoking massive joints. It's a really bad look for a city that wants to be ambitious and clean and going places in which people are actually achieving on a day-to-day basis rather than just flopping around getting high.
Absolutely. And let me tell you that legalising cannabis does not snuff out, does not stop the illegal drug trade, because the thing about legalising cannabis is all about regulation. So you have, you know, nobody under the age of 18 can buy it. There are certain strength limitations and so on and so forth. So the illegal dealers are having a field day saying no age limits with us, no strength limits. So in places like Colorado, apparently, like illegal drug dealing, cannabis dealing is off the scale. And by the way, when they actually legalised it, so you know, the reason states and indeed countries like the idea of legalising cannabis is because it brings in tax money.
Yes.
So in Colorado, they legalised cannabis, brought in like millions, zillions of dollars of tax money. Guess what they spent the tax money on? A new police station and a new courthouse.
I was going to say maybe some rehab facilities, maybe.
No, it was a police station and a courthouse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible idea, and Sadiq Khan is a muppet. Can he not just do something more positive rather than actually lead to more degeneration in London? Does he actually want us to turn into a kind of Seattle-style downtrodden place of homelessness and drug addiction?
Yeah. As I say, the main thing to remember about this is the whole contention. If we legalise cannabis, that will put the evil cannabis dealers out of business. It hasn't. Business is booming for them. It has been a real bonus for them. So it doesn't work on that level either. And yeah, I've been over, you know, I hear, you know, that the streets of these cities in America where it's been legalised are like the zombie zone. Everybody's stoned off their heads. It's not good, Isabel. It's not good. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Labour's funniest MP. And when I say Labour's funniest MPs, I don't mean in a good way. Stay tuned.
Nigel Farage's promises add up to over £100 billion. £100 billion, that is Liz Truss times 2.5. And he has not the first idea how he's going to pay for any of these promises. So he stands there on these stages and at rallies, throwing out all these promises. I'm going to spend extra money on this, I'm going to cut that tax. All these promises, well over £100 billion. You know, Nigel Farage has never been in government, hasn't had to explain a record. He's making those promises without having any idea how to deliver them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, you like comedy, don't you? You like a good laugh?
I get a good laugh every time I talk to you, Kev. What have you got for me?
Well, I'm going to present to you Westminster's funniest comedy character, and when I say that, this isn't in a good way. He is the MP for Dover. His name is Mike Tapp, former military man. I admire him for that. But as an MP, he makes a damn good racehorse. He's an absolute joke. Tweeted only recently about my colleagues, my esteemed colleagues, Mike Graham and Julia Hartley-Brewer. These two entertainment presenters, brackets, they are not journalists, need to be sacked. There is no place for this behaviour within British media. What he means by that was Mike and Julia having the temerity to criticise the Labour government. He also tweets regularly about Nigel Farage and Reform being fake patriots. He's got massive Farage derangement syndromes. But this is getting serious. So this is what after Nigel Farage's and Reform's press conference yesterday, wasn't it? Where he announced widespread tax breaks, the restoration of the winter fuel allowance, special tax breaks for young people in order to do something about our declining birth rate. It was all, upbeat. I'm going to save your tax monies. This is what Mike Tapp tweeted. He said, Russian bots are out in force defending Farage. Now, we've been in touch with Mike Tapp and said, please come on the show because we'd like you to substantiate this. Do you have, I presume, before you made this incredibly serious charge, that all these tweets, thousands of tweets supporting Nigel Farage, were the work of Russian bots? Before you made this incredibly serious allegation, I assume, Mr. Tapp, you had evidence for this. You investigated it and you proved it. You substantiated it. You won't be all that surprised to note, I suspect, Isabel, that Mike hasn't got back to us. Anyway, just before I get your comments, here's Mike talking about how you can trust Labour with our sovereign borders. I'm serious.
In just 9 months, we've deported record numbers and we're pushing new counter-terror powers through Parliament to dismantle the smuggling gangs at the source.
And they will have new counter-terror powers to better monitor, track and disrupt criminal gang activity.
While others shout, we've been working. We're building international relations, leading to influence, to change laws in France to stop the boats in shallow waters. This is a serious plan, but it takes time, and there is more to come.
We all want to see an end to dangerous small boat crossings.
Now, don't let anyone trick you into thinking it's simple. They're not being honest.
What do you call an obscure backbench MP who makes videos with dramatic music like that as the backdrop? Criminally ambitious, I would suggest. But I'm serious. You can't go round saying Russian bots are out in force defending Farage unless you've got evidence for it. If you haven't got evidence, that is just spreading misinformation. Last time I looked, Keir Starmer wasn't at all keen on spreading misinformation. What does this guy think he's playing at?
I mean, he's absolutely desperate to be given, clearly, some kind of shadow ministerial role. I assume he hasn't, an actual ministerial role, because he is a Labour MP, isn't he, for...
Dover, front line of the migrant crisis.
Down there, Dover. So he first came to my attention when he started tweeting that basically only this government can secure our borders. all the while, literally hundreds of illegal immigrants are pouring into his own constituency. I thought, who is this complete and utter clown gaslighting us, trying to pretend that white is black, and this guy, what's he all about? And since then, he's simply doubled down on that and continues to put out these ludicrous videos. I mean, who does he think he is in that video? Look at all those hand movements. Who does he think he is? Is he auditioning to be some kind of future Blair? Is that who he thinks he is? Because he really sure as hell hasn't got any chance if he just makes stuff up like this. And the Russian bot thing, it's so feeble. It's so feeble. Hello, Labour. If you think that Nigel Farage's support comes from Russian bots, well, knock yourselves out. It means you're going to lose the next election on grounds of stupidity alone.
Yeah, and he's, as I say, he's got a very dangerous case of Farage derangement syndrome. He tweets constantly about don't fall for the fake patriotism of Farage's reform. Constantly, like kind of about every 4 minutes. He's obsessed with the alleged fake patriotism of reform. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. But he's clearly very, very ambitious. But at this rate, he's going to get nowhere. I'll tell you what's going to happen to Mike Tapp. Probably within about the next 12 hours, he's going to get a phone call from Downing Street saying, hey, Mike, wind your bloody neck in.
Well, I think you're giving Downing Street a bit more credit for some kind of, strategic communications. I don't think that they're really paying that much attention. I mean, he doesn't like me either, Kevin. I'm sure he'll now be fully on your radar, and he'll be tweeting that you and I are both entertainment journalists, or we're not for real, or whatever. He's got a real business bonnet. I tell you what really winds him up though, Kev, it may not be original, but it sure as hell works. Just call him drip, drip, drip. Can anyone
drip, tap? Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone know if there's a plumber around? Dripping taps are very, very boring. It may not be original, but it really gets to him.
Yeah, also, here's an idea. I mean, the smart, ambitious young MPs, they don't start picking fights with people like Mike Graham and Julia Hartley-Brewer. They may not be on the same page as them politically, but you don't make enemies of people like Mike Graham and Julia Hartley-Brewer unless you're really, really politically naive and, dare I say, completely stupid.
Or unless you're already at the absolute top of the tree and you can afford to make enemies. Even then, I wouldn't suggest it's a great idea to fall out with Dame Julia and King Mike. It's not a great idea. But when you're at the bottom there, it's a really good idea to make strategic friends with people that might be able to help you on the way up the greasy pole. Yeah. And I've seen people at the beginning of their careers be very clever about that. Mike Tapp is not going about it the right way.
Exactly right. I just love that when he's on the cliffs of Dover. No doubt, if you look closer, you can see thousands of migrants coming across on small boats, and he's standing there with that music. Mike, you're just some little backbencher. Why, as I said, wind your neck in. Great to talk to you, Isabel. We'll talk again tomorrow. That's Isabella Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. When we come back, Dame Andrea Jenkins from Reform. Stay tuned for that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, I'll be taking your calls. 03444991000. You know what we're talking about tonight. Particularly interested to hear what you think about Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the big spending speaker, whose staff bill, wages bill, has gone up from £550,000 to over £1 million in just 2 years. He's jet-setting around the world. Who's going to bring this guy to book? We need questions answered about how much money he's spending, taxpayers' money. 03444991000. You're probably far more energised by this extraordinary scene with these two coppers, you know, who beat up an old bloke with their truncheon, then tasered him, pepper sprayed him. He's 92 years old. He had one leg in a care home. He's holding a knife about the size of my thumb. It was a butter knife. I mean, I'd have just walked over and said, give me a knife. Come on. Stop it. Stop being so silly. But they sort of went at him as if he was some sort of 6'5", 25-year-old lunatic with a gun. I mean, unbelievable. Where's the common sense in that? Let me know about that. Right, 03444991000. Let's go straight over to my very esteemed next guest. Always a joy to welcome her to this show. She's Reform UK's new mayor for Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Welcome back, Andrea.
You're not turning into a snowflake, are you?
No. Me, that'll be the day. Right, I want to play you. So I saw you at Nigel Farage's conference yesterday and his speech as well, of course. I can't resist playing you this little interlude, so have a look.
The migrant costs, the illegal migrant costs by the end of our 5-year term will be zero. They won't be coming. They won't be coming. And we have a model for this. It's called Australia. Australia had the boats arriving, coming from Indonesia. They didn't know what to do. Then Tony Abbott, as Prime Minister, tried a few different methods. In the end, he towed them back to Indonesia. There was outrage. Outrage. The UN, the EU, the British Foreign Office. What a dreadful human being Tony Abbott is. But guess what happened? Within 2 weeks, people didn't pay the traffickers, because they knew they wouldn't be allowed to stay. There is a deeper debate here, by the way. Even though the hotels are awful and very visible, if you talk to Sarah afterwards, she'll tell you that actually the houses of multiple occupancy in residential streets in some ways are even worse in terms of not just cost, but the huge social problems they bring. So look, the answer is very simple. One of our senior party members has suggested tents. I'm much more hardline than her. They won't be allowed to stay. Thank you.
Well, I believe that you were the one who mentioned tents there, Andrea. I mean, so do you? I mean, I agree with you. I mean, what confuses me is why no one complains when these migrants turn up on the north coast of France, and if they're lucky, if they're very lucky, they'll get given a tent. They never get given hotels, they never get given houses, they never get given any money, no dentists, no doctors, no lawyers. They're given a tent if they're lucky. You've suggested similar treatment to the migrants who break into our country illegally. All the leftists, oh, what a terrible thing to say. But Nigel there, I think, paying you some respect, but him saying that his method is actually tougher because he just wants to stop them coming into the country. So where do we stand here, Andrea?
Look, it was about shifting the dial and getting people talking about it. And I mean, you obviously get it. You know, you think the same as I do. If tents are good enough for France, they're good enough in this country. But Nigel's right. I mean, I've said for a long time that we've got to stop this pull. With soft touch Britain, there's far too many soft touch politicians, and thankfully in our party leader is certainly not a soft touch, as is proof for decades. So go Nigel.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing, I'll see, we've got lots of footage ready to play, but if I played it all, neither you nor I will get a word in edgeways, but we'll play some of it. But in essence, the main tranche of what Nigel Farage announced yesterday was a kind of tax revolution, insofar as we'll give tax breaks to young couples for getting married and having children, something that was always the backbone of taxing the people of this country, but somehow seems to have fallen by the wayside. So he's returning that. Also, tax breaks all round generally, plus, of course, the restoration, the total restoration of the winter fuel allowance that Labour so cruelly axed. Now, the Tories in particular, after that, were all up in arms. Oh, yes, all very well for him to say that, but how is he going to pay for it? How is he going to pay for it? Well, he did say, look, it's not going to be simple, but there is one simple way that will find a lot of money to fund all of these generous tax breaks, and that is this: we will cancel completely the net zero madness. The net zero madness that the Tories so stupidly continue to sign up for. That, I think, is a winner for you guys, Andrea.
Oh, completely, definitely. And I mean, on speaking to Nigel, it's about, for him and for myself as well, it's about, look, you work hard. Why is it always those who work hard who get punished later in life, or who try to do the right things? So it's trying to ensure that this is leveled, really. And I agree with that. Now, what you said about net zero, completely, you know, as I've said previously on your show, there was a homogenised view on net zero with the three other parties, and we are the only one who's talking sense. And further in his speech, I mean, when he said about stopping illegal migration, obviously net zero, but he also said about stopping the diversity inclusion, saving money there. And I just don't know how the Conservatives can go and say that, actually, about being uncosted, because let's face it, we are the only party at the moment who's putting out policies and going anywhere near to costing policies. I mean, we're 4 years away from an election, and to hear as well Mel Stride to be having a go at Nigel when he was the one who was the architect of the IR 34 and the loan charge, which, you know, people was.
Don't talk to me about IR 35.
Yeah, exactly.
You're looking at a victim here.
No,
a
exactly.
victim. It's cost me a fortune.
Exactly, and I was like the vice chair of the all-party group on loan charge, trying to fight back on this. So if anybody's out of touch with the people who are trying to do the right thing in life, it's Mel Stride.
Yeah, I remember Liz Truss, R.I.P., God rest her soul and all that. But she did do something that was very, you know, and I always think she actually gets too hard a time. Her heart was in the right place. She possibly went too fast. But what she tried to do was restore the Conservative government to a kind of conservatism. Yes. And one of the things that she said was she just scrapped IR 35. So I'm going, yeah, go Liz and all this. Of course, as soon as she fell, in comes Jeremy Hunt, brings back IR 35. And I remember I interviewed John Redwood, and he actually cited that as just about the most profoundly unconservative thing you could ever do. Because what it does is it punishes entrepreneurial people who want to go it alone, people who have a get up and go spirit. It punishes them. And
punishes aspiration, isn't it? Those
exactly right. Exactly right. So you know, to hell with these Tories who say IR 35 is a good thing. Yes, and Mel Stride was one of the people who said, you know, well, you know, how is he going to pay for all this? He explained. Now, the money that a reform government could save, cancelling net zero and cancelling DEI, like Donald Trump did, is phenomenal, isn't it?
Exactly. Completely. And I mean, another strong message that came out of Nigel's speech was, you know, vote reform, get reform. Which is true, isn't it? I mean, my election sort of demonstrated that as well. And on top of that as well, do you want something straight hot off the press?
Oh, yes, please.
You know the guy who stood against me, the Conservatives, and the Conservatives called the police on me? Yeah. Well, he's just put a statement out tonight. He helped write the devolution deal. He was the council leader, is now trying to stop devolution. So trying to stop the post of mayor existing.
Oh, really? So he's trying to get rid of you by cancelling your job.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't want to play anymore. He didn't want to be part of it anymore. Now he's
cancelling the job that he stood to be elected to do. Honestly, these people.
It shows you how out of touch the Conservatives are now, and it's sad to see. You know, it's ridiculous. And also, if you looked at their social media as well, everything is negative. Attack everybody else. They're not coming out with any policies themselves.
Well, when we come back after the break in a few minutes, I'm going to play you some footage that I think sums up why the Tories are finished. They've forgotten how to oppose. They don't seem to want to be particularly different to this Labour government. They tend to agree with the Labour government all the time. I'll play you some of that later on. Now, I'm not sure what this piece of footage is going to contain, but it says here, Nigel Farage on reforms policies. So let's have a look at that.
If we win the next election, we will scrap net zero, something that is costing the Exchequer an extraordinary £40 billion plus every year. There will be no more asylum hotels or houses of multiple occupancy. People who come here illegally across the channel or on the back of lorries will not be allowed to stay. We will scrap the DEI agenda, which is costing the taxpayer up to £7 billion a year throughout the public sector.
You see, all this, how is he going to pay for it? I mean, what he said just there. These are massive savings. We have.
Well, this is music to people's ears. This is what people have been wanting to hear for the last decade or so, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
It's insane the way successive governments, Tory and Labour, have been wasting our money on the kind of claptrap that we aren't interested in. Nobody ever voted for net zero. Nobody voted for Ed Miliband and all this nonsense. And getting rid of it, like they did in America, would be great news. And by the way, we can also increase the economy by, I don't know, you know that biggest reservoir of shale gas in all of Europe underneath your county, Greater Lincolnshire.
That's what I'm going to explore.
We could open that. We could open that up.
Hopefully.
We could start to make some money by drill, baby, drill, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm trying to get a business case together and, you know, see if we can get the public behind it to then put it to government. I mean, Miliband is crazy, isn't he? As Richard says, net stupid zero, isn't it? So they're not going to listen, but politicians listen when there's people power. That's when you start seeing U-turns.
Well, I do think that. I mean, you know, I don't want to be too partisan here. I am, of course, a neutral presenter, but I can see that where Labour and the Tories are struggling to connect with the people of this country, Reform are not. Reform are speaking to the people of this country. We've had enough of this nonsense. We've had enough of it. And I think that is the sort of fuel in the momentum of Reform UK. Listen, Andrew, let's go to break now. And when we come back, I'm going to play you that footage that I promised to play you, so stick around.
he should be charged within the next today, I would imagine.
Yeah.
They can hold people for a maximum of 96 hours, 4 days, but that's in really extreme circumstances. So I imagine he'll be charged, hopefully by the end of the day, so we'll find out some more facts. But then there'll have to be an inquiry because, as I say, this is not the last time that Liverpool or Everton are going to win a major trophy, and these things are going to happen again. And this is just completely unacceptable to allow the community to be put in such danger.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Reform UK's new Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Andrea, before we move on, I just want to ask you a little bit about the Lucy Connolly case. I just wondered, if you're not across this, don't worry, but our audience, and indeed I am, we're all pretty worked up about this, the clearing of these two coppers. Look, the fact that they've been cleared of assault, to my mind, it's not really the heart of the problem here. What I want to ask you is, what do you think about these two coppers who walked into a room in a care home where there's this old guy, 92 years old, brandishing a knife about the size of my thumb? It's a butter knife, by the way. Now, what would you have done, or what would I have done? I'd have walked over and say, "Give me the gun, you silly old codger," or "Give me not a gun, give me the knife." These coppers, what they did was they beat him up with a truncheon, they pepper sprayed him, and then taser gunned him. And 22 days later, the poor old boy died. What do you? I mean, they got cleared of assault. The police disciplinary commission is going to put them on trial for potential gross misconduct. But it's not really the point. I mean, where is the common sense in the way they treated this poor old bloke?
This is the first time I've seen this. It's horrific. Oh my God, it makes you cry. I'm that poor guy.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but they'd rather be around there waving rainbow flags and Palestinian flags and joining in, and then catching real criminals. That poor old guy. I mean, God.
It's unbelievable. It's just that there's just no common sense in the way, I know what they're doing. They're doing it by the book. Give us the knife. If you don't give us the knife, we will have to taser you. He's 92. He's got one leg. It's just... I
think they need striking off, to be honest.
Well, they are going to come before a disciplinary board at the police where they'll be tried.
The poor man, and he's dead now. That's terrible.
It really is. I just thought I'd get your response to that. Well, let's move on. Now, I've been hosting breakfast here, standing in for the great Mike Graham last few days. On Monday morning, you just get all these people on breakfast who are just available for interview. So we had on a guy called Kieran.
I'm never usually available that early.
Yeah, exactly right. I would never ask you to come on at 6 in the morning. I don't know why I asked myself. So Kieran Mullen is the the Shadow Justice Secretary for the Tories, and I asked him what did he think about Lucy Connolly's grotesquely disproportionate 31-month sentence for hurty words on social media. I'm not a BBC kind of presenter, as you'll see from this little section, but have a look at this. You don't think there's anything unusual about what happened to all those suspects after the summer riots, amid the summer riots? You don't think there's anything unusual that while most suspects wait 2 years before they come to court, those guys and those women were all in court within about 2 days, sentenced in jail but within 5 days? You don't think there's anything unusual about that? You don't think the Prime Minister's got anything to do with that? You're supposed to be the opposition. Oppose!
I do understand why the judiciary, and I think this is the judiciary, not the government, why the judiciary, when there's a public order issue, when there's a risk of widespread disorder, when we're seeing hotels being attacked and other things like that, that they want to send a very clear message to the public in the short term that this has to stop.
What is your stance on Lucy Connolly, please?
Kevin, as much as you might want me to boil down complex issues into yes or no answers, I'm not going to do that. I've set out the clear understanding we have of why people feel there hasn't been proportionality when it comes to some of these cases. In Lucy's
Lucy
case,
Connolly, what is the Tory? Your leader, Kemi Badenoch, says that her sentence is grotesque and she should be released.
What Kemi said was, we understand why people are concerned about that case, and that particularly the decision not to allow her to have overnight visitation was particularly concerning, and that actually we pointed out that Lucy does have routes to appeal that to the prison governor, and actually what Kemi said is it is all about proportionality.
So you're all in favour of the sentence. The Tories support the 31 months for Lucy Connolly. Yep.
Well, as I said,
yes.
It's about
It's a yes or no.
It's not, I'm afraid. It's about proportionality. I understand why people are concerned.
How do you think this appearance is going for you, Kieran?
I think it's not
going very well, is it? It's not going very well, is it?
I'm not sure.
Honestly,
I'm not
you're
sure
so out of step with what the people of this country are thinking.
I'm not.
Seriously, Andrea, what is it? You know, I mean, if that's the standard of Tory shadow cabinet ministers, you know, you guys are going to walk the next election. What is he talking? I mean, he would not tell me whether or not he approves or disapproves of that 31-month sentence. He said it was a complex issue. No, it's not. It's a yes or no.
There's probably a handful of decent Tory MPs left. Most of the others lost the seat. The Thatcherites lost the seat. And I remember Kieran at the time, nice enough guy, but he is one of the One Nation lefties, very much doesn't make a decision. And like a lot of them, there's just no conviction then. And I remember actually that he voted to oust Boris as well. You remember that vote of no confidence?
I'll bet he did.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I mean,
it's pathetic.
a no-brainer, though, isn't it? It's a no-brainer. She should not be in prison.
She should never have gone to prison in the first place. We as a nation should have a very serious discussion about whether or not in our allegedly free Western democracy anyone ever gets sent to prison for hurty words they post on social media. My answer to that is no, that should never happen. But 31 months, do me a favour.
Ridiculous. But also, it just shows you how out of touch, as you said, really, with the electorate the Conservative Party is now. And I mean, I was even speaking to some councillors recently. I was at this event, growth event, and there were some Conservative councillors then. And they still believe this is just a little blip and that they're going to come back because they've got the born to rule attitude. And do they not realise of how they're seen now? I mean, I left that sinking ship in the end because I could see it.
Yeah. Just think of that question. Think of that question I asked that bloke, Kieran Mullen. I said, OK, look, I mean, I did it in my classically angry way, but basically I'm saying to him, look, straight question. Do you approve of the very long 31-month sentence for Lucy Connolly? He goes, much as you'd like me to give you a simple answer to a very complex issue. It's not complex. It's not complex. And if the Tories can't see that the vast majority of people in this country recognise that Lucy Connolly is the victim of a kind of political imprisonment, that is grotesquely disproportionate, then the Tories are even more finished than I thought they were.
Even if they were just loyal, actually, to one of their tribe. Her husband's a Tory councillor.
Well, that's
not even loyal to their tribe.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, he's not the first one to say this. The Tory line seems to be, well, it is this, that there's no question whatsoever that the Prime Minister and the Labour government had anything to do with the fact that the 385 people who went to jail after the Southport and Summer riots with indecent haste, all arrested, charged within about 3 days, in court in 4 days, in jail in 5 days. Other defendants wait 2 years. All of them got very, very severe sentences. 12 of them, by the way, went to jail for hurty words on social media. They all got really severe sentences, and the Tory line is, this was nothing to do with Keir Starmer or the Labour government. It was the judiciary acting independently. What a load of codswallop. Absolute rubbish, isn't it?
Just completely. I'm just flabbergasted with it all, actually. You feel like tearing your hair out, don't you? It's just like, where's common sense gone? Where's decency? Where's doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, as if a load of judges and magistrates are going to go, well, you know, these riots, they're a real problem, so let's completely change our justice system. Let's get them all in jail within 3 days. Let's all decide this on our own. It's just nonsense. It was Keir Starmer. All of those prisoners, some of them, you know, I'm not disputing, some of them committed pretty serious crimes, but a lot of those people are political prisoners. They're in jail because the government wanted it, and there's something profoundly wrong about that. Can I move?
I mean, look, Lucy, she's a mum as well, and any parent who saw what happened to those beautiful girls, their heart was ripped out. And she reacted, she took it down later, but she was hurt, wasn't she? Yeah. As every parent was.
Yeah, she was angry. She was angry. She was emotionally empathising. She lost her own child in tragic circumstances a year before due to an NHS mistake, horrifically. And she was empathising with 3 fellow mothers who just lost their beautiful young girls, their beautiful young daughters. She lost her temper. What she tweeted, you know, is not to be condoned. It was unwise. It was over the top. But you know, any sentence at all? No. 31 months? What is this? North Korea? Do me a favour. Can I ask you, well, I've got you, Andrea, because we were doing this story earlier. It's about the Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Labour MP for Chorley up north. Now, we've been covering this story for some time. We've been asking questions, and we're not the only ones. The papers have been doing this big time. Why has this guy spent £270,000 over 3 years travelling the world, first class, business class, staying in very expensive hotels, having expensive dinners? When he went to the Caribbean, to Montserrat, he even hired a private jet. He always goes to glamorous destinations, 19 trips or something in 3 years. Also, when he moved into his palatial Westminster apartment, he organised £7 million worth of refurbishments. This is taxpayers' money, all taxpayers' money. There's a £36,000 portrait of the great man hanging in the Westminster corridors of power. He's kept, or pretty much kept, he's received from foreign dignitaries over the past 3 years 300 gifts, most of which he's kept. Now we learn that his staff, when he took over this job, he had 12 staff. In 2023, 12 staff. 2 years later now, he's got 21. So his wages bill for people who work in the Speaker's office has gone up from £550,000 a year, in itself a lot if you ask me, to more than £1 million a year. Now what's happened is this guy, I contend, has quietly, off his own back, redefined the role of the Speaker. I mean, the role of the Speaker to most of us is sitting in that big chair shouting, "Order!" I realise he has other functions and it's an important job. But most people don't think that the role of the Speaker is one of an international diplomat traversing the planet. He says, spreading the word about speaker-led democracies, attending conferences, and this is my particular favourite, telling foreigners how important he thinks it is that we support Ukraine, that Britain supports Ukraine against Russia. Now, all I'm saying is there are some serious questions about this guy's expenditure and how he's changed the role of the Speaker, to afford himself, let's not beat about the bush, a rather glamorous jet-setting lifestyle. Serious questions. No MP's going to ask that question because if they get on the wrong side of the Speaker, he won't call them to make their speeches. So we have a situation here where the public, I think, want to know. They want these questions answered. We've had a few perfunctory sort of spokesman type, oh, it's very important that the Speaker spreads the word and all that kind of stuff. But we're never going to get a proper explanation from MPs. So what do we do about this?
Look, I mean, I like Lindsay, he's a nice guy, and when you consider what we had with Berko, who was trying to stop Brexit. However, you know, this is grossly out of touch. People are struggling to pay the bills, pay the mortgage, and that's just not acceptable. But you are so right, because the issue is MPs won't get picked. Look when don't know what's happening on here. Look when he broke protocol, and because Labour was putting pressure on him, Starmer was putting pressure on him because of the Palestinian stuff. Yeah. And he then chose the their amendment, etc. So.
And he had to apologise for that, didn't he?
He did, yeah. But no MP will stand up to him. So thank God you're there. But I think all that we can do is media like yourself keep asking MPs these questions and write to your MP if you're not happy with it. You know, this is your money. This is taxpayers' money. Yeah. Write to your MP and get them to ask questions in Parliament.
What I'm trying to stress here, Andrea, is you know, I'm not saying Sir Lindsay Hoyle. I'm not coming straight out and saying Sir Lindsay Hoyle is wasting one hell of a lot of taxpayers' money. By redefining the role of the Speaker, because he may have a very legitimate response. He may be able to explain exactly why he's doing all of this. But this issue is not being discussed publicly because MPs are too terrified to raise the issue. So the public are asking questions and we don't know how to get proper answers. Our MPs are not helping us here.
And remember, in the summer last year, all the freebies that Starmer, Rayner and all of them was getting, MPs were speaking out about that, wasn't there? But all we can literally do with this is write to their MPs, get them to put pressure on, because MPs will only act if they feel they're losing votes. And that's the bluntness about it, unfortunately.
Let me ask you one last question before you go. It's been great talking to you, as always. I did a sort of fairly light-hearted semi-comedy feature with Isabel Oakeshott just now, but it's got a serious element to it. I don't know if you've noticed this guy, Mike Tapp. He's the MP for Dover on the front line of the migrant crisis. And boy,
it's trolled me a few times,
yeah,
actually.
Boy, oh boy, does he hate reform. He hates reform. He's got Farage derangement syndrome in spades.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, after your press conference and speech yesterday with Nigel Farage, he tweeted. This was in response to the fact that Nigel's speech and that press conference got loads and loads of supportive posts on social media. People going, yeah, go for it, yeah, solve the migrant crisis. He tweeted that this was all the work of Russian bots.
Oh, ridiculous.
Russian bots out in force defending Farage. Now, my point about this is, you know, it's funny, it's ridiculous. This guy is a funny kind of guy, only not in a good way. An ambitious.
What's his background? What did he do?
To be fair, he was a soldier.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I'd respect him for that. He was in the intelligence corps. So he's got a decent background, but he is a very ambitious young man. And he's not going about it the right way. But my point here, Andrea, is when he says Russian bots out in force, actually, that's a very serious allegation. A very serious allegation to make. Has he got any proof for this? Has he got any evidence for it? Or is he just sticking out the misinformation, the unsubstantiated
fake news
misinformation that his boss Keir Starmer affects to so deplore. This is not right, is it?
But you know, in the hustings, in my hustings during the local elections, the Labour candidate then said about Putin and Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. So they just banned it out so easy now, but the left get away with it. That's the issue. The left get away with it because, let's face it, the mainstream media outlets do not hold them to account.
Yeah, but that, you know, as I say, we can laugh about it. There is something sort of rather comedic about this, but it's a very serious allegation to say that the Russians are out there sending out fake tweets to support Reform UK. You know, we've tried to reach out to him and say, Mike, this is a very serious allegation. Could you provide the evidence for this allegation? Do you have any proof? You won't be surprised to hear we haven't heard back from him.
No, absolutely.
But you can't. MPs, representatives of the people in the mother of all parliaments, shouldn't be just bandying these kind of charges around.
Well, I'll have to send you a clip, actually, what I put out during the general election last year, because Labour MPs all have a script. I mean, the candidates last year, I called them Starmer bots. I put this video out. I'll have to send you it.
Oh, do.
Because, you know, honestly, every line they're saying is exactly the same with about 50 MPs that candidates that I found. They're all saying the exact same line, so I called them Starmer bots. So I think that, you know, there's no malfunction there, so they'll keep...
Let me get
the party line.
Let me get your final comment about Mike Tapp, who literally stood up and said, "You can trust Labour with our sovereign borders." I'm serious.
That's a good note to end on, isn't it?
There's no real thing to say about that, is there? Listen, Andrea, always a pleasure to talk to you. Come on again very soon. Dame Andrea Jenkins there, Reform UK's brand brandish new MP for Greater Lincolnshire. Let me know what you think about some of what I think are the great things that she was saying. She always speaks a lot of sense. When she talks about tents for migrants, I mean, you know, you can take it how you want. Oh, what a terrible, inhumane thing to say. What she's saying is, why is it that nobody goes, "Oh, those French, the way they treat the migrants is inhumane. Wouldn't they only give them tents if they're lucky? That's disgraceful." Nobody says that at all. Nobody says anything about the way the French treat the migrants, and that is how they treat them. No money, no doctors, no dentists, no lawyers, no accommodation, no hotels, no houses. A tent if they're lucky. That's what they get in France. Nobody criticises the French for that. So when Andrea Jenkins says, why don't we put the migrants in tents when they break into our country here? Oh, that's an outrageous thing to say. Why? Why is it that outrageous? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. When we come back, we'll take some of your calls. So stick around, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Going to go to the phones in just a second. Here's a representative tweet or text that I've had. Got lots along these lines. This is Stuart in Perthshire. Hi, Kev. If I'd been faced with that 92-year-old gentleman, I would have walked up, sat down next to him and asked him if he wanted some toast and butter. What a sham this is. And it's well known that tasers are dangerous to people with heart issues. And I think at 92, anyone's heart would have issues simply due to to age. Poor old chap. I think Stuart's right. You know, I don't know whether Douglas, this old boy, actually had heart problems, but when you're 92, you can take it as read that your heart is not firing on all cylinders. So a massive, great taser jolt into your heart, I think probably not good for him. He did die 22 days later. Outrageous what happened there. Outrageous. Let's talk to a new caller. Love a new caller. Fiona from the Isle of Wight, who wants to talk about just this. Yeah, Fiona, wasn't that shocking what we saw in that video?
Absolutely horrendous. I just can't believe something like that could happen in this country. I mean, what standard of policing there is now? Just horrendous.
I think that my interpretation of what happened there was these two dim coppers just going by the book. You know, if you read their instructions, ask firmly for them to give up the knife, to hand you the knife. If they don't, open fire with your phaser. Well, you know, fair enough, but when they're 92 years old and they've only got one leg and they're sitting in a care home, maybe don't worry too much about going by the book. If it was me or you, I'm sure, Fiona, I'd just walk over to him and say, give me the damn knife.
Exactly.
You know, what do they think? What do they think he was going to do? Hop away or something?
Exactly. And I mean, no one's going to be stabbed unless they get within 2 feet of him anyway. So, you know, what is the... And the poor chap probably had dementia, you know, that kind of dementia where they're aggressive. And, you know, I don't understand why the care home even called the police in. Surely they should have been able to cope.
Yeah, well, that's a good point as well. But, you know, I suppose, you know, perhaps he had a reputation for being cantankerous and difficult, and he was apparently he was threatening staff with this knife. But it was a butter knife, as I keep saying. It was about the hang on, let's go there. It's about the size of my thumb.
Exactly.
And they're all bendy, you know. I mean, it was a joke. But I mean, as I say, what I find incredible about that and shocking is just that those two coppers, the phenomenal lack of common sense in their approach to dealing with this situation, don't you think?
But that's the worry, isn't it, these days, of the standard of police?
Isn't it just? That's exactly it. That's exactly what we're talking about. The standard of police. Those two police officers, unless they had some kind of aberration, just making that decision alone, I think, makes them unsuitable. Not cut out to hold the badge, to wear the badge. It really does. Absolutely ridiculous. And of course, I think our thoughts are with Douglas's family and friends as well. Absolutely awful. Fiona, whereabouts on the Isle of Wight do you live, by the way?
Bembridge.
Bembridge, very nice, very nice. Have you always lived on the Isle of Wight?
No, but I grew up here, then came.
I used to go on holiday when I was a kid to Shanklin.
Oh, yes, that's very popular.
Very nice, very nice. I haven't been back to the Isle of Wight for a while, but you're lucky to live there. And thank you very much for an excellent call. Don't be a stranger. Call me again. That's Fiona in the Isle of Wight. Get on the bandwagon. There's lots of people calling in about that shocking tasering event, that incident where two coppers... I mean, I'm laughing because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. I mean, tasering a 92-year-old guy with one leg. I mean, they should have thought it through. You know, hang on, he's 92, he's got one leg, he's in a care home. If we taser him and pepper spray him and beat him up with a truncheon, that might not be a good look. That didn't seem to occur to them, did it? Idiots, absolute idiots. They got let off in court today. I suppose, presumably, because it was argued this was in the line of duty. But they are going to go before the Police Complaints Commission with a view to being tried for gross misconduct. So they could lose their jobs for this. And frankly, they fully deserve to. I don't like saying for that. I don't like calling for people to lose their jobs, but those two get sacked. That's all you deserve. You can both go and get sacked. Now, next up, we're going to be talking about the Ministry of Defence. We talked about Lindsay Hoyle, the speaker earlier, spending one hell of a lot of taxpayers' money travelling the world glamorously. Well, the Ministry of Defence is no slouch either. Over the past year, they've spent £200 million of taxpayers' money on travel and luxury stays at wonderful hotels for senior staff, civil servants, and, of course, military personnel, senior military personnel. Meanwhile, the lower orders, the privates and the constables and the corporals and the sergeants, they're living in armed forces accommodation that is notorious. Much of it terribly dilapidated, riven with rats, and also full of black mould, dangerous black mould. So the army accommodation, or our armed forces accommodation, is notorious. Meanwhile, the MOD is spending one hell of a lot of money affording the top brass a really wonderful lifestyle. We'll talk about that after this break. Stay where you are.
The war is escalating, it's not diffusing, and the potential for the ceasefire and peace negotiations have been a distraction from that. Putin is making his position very clear indeed.
Yeah, he really is. And so has the kind of peace plan just fallen by the wayside? Is that the end of it?
I don't think it's the end of it. Both sides are still talking-ish. We're waiting for what Donald Trump's going to say next on Truth Social as to what the next line is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. As I was saying before the break, Defence Chief spent more than £200 million of taxpayers' money on travel, luxury stays for senior staff. We're talking about, of course, senior military top brass, also civil servants, destinations for officers and Whitehall staff, MOD civil servants included the French Alps and Las Vegas. And when in London, Ministry of Defence personnel routinely stayed at £400 a night hotels. Meanwhile, the military rank and file subsist in rat-infested accommodation riven with black mould. These dilapidated conditions have triggered an astonishing 60,000 complaints from our troops. So there's something wrong in this picture. Let's speak to former Director General at the Ministry of Defence, Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, Kevin.
Well, do you share my disquiet about this information? I mean, I understand that Ministry of Defence personnel, senior top brass, have to travel around, and I'm not expecting them to stay in caravan parks. But £200 million of taxpayers' money on expensive hotels and swish travel, air flights to places like Las Vegas and the French Alps, while military personnel, while the rank and file are forced to live in accommodation that is pretty notoriously dilapidated. There's something wrong here, isn't there?
There's been something wrong for quite a long time. Oddly enough, when I was a director, not a director general in the Ministry of Defence, I did a report on service accommodation, which was absolutely frightful. And it involved one regiment that was staying in Aldershot, of which 40% went home every night to South Wales because they wanted a shower and a good night's sleep. And we were complaining about it at the time. It's the real problem with the Ministry of Defence for a long time has been that it gives a lot of its functions to agencies, and they're not held to account, frankly, agencies and also sort of contractors who essentially bid low and, of course, deliver low. I can tell you on the accommodation and travel side, when I was still serving as a Rear Admiral, we tried to book our own accommodation and travel and found that we could do it 30% of what was being offered by the agency that was contracted to do all the accommodation and travel for the mod. Instead of getting a sort of well done for it, I got a reprimand for it for going outside the established protocols, but we were working out that we could actually save the mod quite a lot of money. So I'm afraid it's laziness, it's the way in which the contractual arrangements work, and as you hinted, it's turning a blind eye to really how we should treat our people. I should say though, Kevin, you know, the money you're talking about is over 6 years. It's not just a yearly sum. Some of it will be justified. But, you know, people travel, they don't travel business class. Even senior officers don't travel business class. They go, depending on the length of the journey, they either go economy or premium economy most of the time. And I think the Daily Mail's been a bit cheeky. I mean, they might be staying in £400 hotels, but they won't be paying £400. They'll be paying something around 180 or something like that, which is what is allowed in London nowadays.
Yeah, and in fairness, it's hard to find hotels that are much cheaper than £400 anywhere near central London. But I mean, on a general basis, you know, why does the Ministry of Defence, and I realise you're not there anymore, why does it spend £4 million a year on 62 full-time diversity staff? I mean, couldn't you take some of that money and improve the accommodation for the rank and file? Those poor people who are having to go all the way from Aldershot to South Wales just to get a shower?
Yeah, probably not the best one to talk to because I'm on record as having been, as having said that if you have to have a DEI organisation within your unit, you've probably got a problem with your leadership. And for that, I'm now not allowed to speak at the Defence Academy because it's politically incorrect, and they don't want me corrupting the minds of our mid-seniority officers.
It is a bit odd, isn't it, Chris, though, because you'll be aware of this, and you know I know this from my friends in politics in Westminster and people who work in Whitehall, that the Ministry of Defence has got this reputation for being the wokest ministry of them all. By the way, the diversity staff, there's 62 diversity staff who work at the MOD, 62, count them. Do you know what they call themselves? They call themselves protecting the protectors. Why do you think it is that the Ministry of Defence, of all ministries, is the wokest of them all? It seems a bit weird.
Well, the reason is that if you work in a hierarchy for most of your life and your career depends on conforming, then you're not going to say no to any of this. If you stick your neck out here, you're not going to get promoted. And so it's a conspiracy, I'm afraid, amongst those people who want to get on. The first person that stands up and says this is all complete rubbish will get trashed. There's no question about it. And I'm afraid to say that, you know, I have a doctorate in psychology. It's all about how hierarchies operate. And I'm afraid to say that the radicals or those that actually point out that the emperor has new clothes get binned.
Yeah, you're so right about that, Chris. He who speaks out kind of sacrifices his career, I should say, he or she, of course, and non-binary people as well. Got to remember the diversity staff at the MOD.
All I can tell you, Kevin, is that all this rubbish doesn't survive first contact with the enemy.
Exactly. We're almost forgetting here, I'm sure you didn't, but I almost did, that the Ministry of Defence actually does have quite an important job to do, you know, defending this country, defending this realm. And there they are obsessing on DEI. But why, to go back to our original point, Chris, the travel is something that should be looked at, I think, definitely. But why is the MOD or the people who run the armed forces, why are they not giving a priority to improving the accommodation for our brave people who serve in our forces? That should be a #1 priority, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I agree. But the problem is, Kevin, they're being asked to do quite a lot on the front line. And so what tends to happen is they cut the tail so that you can preserve the teeth. But when I was in the service, I was used to say to my seniors, when I got to be senior, look, if you cut the tail too much, you get to the gums and the teeth fall out. And this is a classic case of that. If you treat your people badly, they're going to leave, their morale's poor. And when you finally put them into action, they're not in the best shape to do it. So investment in your people, it should be absolutely everything. I mean, going back to the travel thing, Kevin, I used to say to my people when I used to send them off around the world for various things, I said, if you can prove by sitting in a club class seat on that journey that you bring back the same amount of value to this country and to my organisation, go ahead. I don't care, because that's what it's about. What I object to is wasted money. I mean, your French Alps, quotation, I know what that'll be about. That'll be senior officers supporting the Royal Navy Disabled Ski Club, for example.
Okay, all right.
It's things like that. But, do they need to go? No, they don't. The skiers can get on with it on their own, to tell you the truth.
I'll tell you the way it goes, right? So I'm an old Fleet Street hack, and so I was there in the days of strict unionisation where, pretty much you got everything. And so reporters, we used to fly everywhere, but business class, club class, unless it was a long haul, and then it was first class.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was first class. So it was like, oh, yeah, great, yeah. And obviously we always stayed at great hotels. Then the unions kind of began to collapse. And so the bosses turned round to us all and said, right, if you want to go to Los Angeles or Mexico or wherever you're being sent, or Australia, you have to go economy class from now on. How is that with you? So we sort of go, so if we don't go economy, we don't go at all. And they go, yeah, that's about it. And so we went, yeah, all right, then we'll go economy. People tend to take whatever they're offered, don't they?
The problem is, Kevin, you have a situation where you get different budgets and different organisations. I remember travelling economy class to the United States with 2 chief petty officers who worked in a separate organisation, the equivalent of sergeants sitting in business class. So you can get these anomalies.
Oh dear, it's a mad world, Chris. It's a mad world. But listen,
yeah, we're part of it.
Yeah, we certainly are. Really good to have you on board. Thank you very much.
Take care.
That's Chris Parry, former director at the Ministry of Defence and a Rear Admiral as well, talking a lot of sense. Now, Jeremy Clarkson, right? We're going to talk about this after the news. He's given a big interview. He's plugging his new series, Clarkson's Farm, on Amazon, isn't it? Tried to get him on my show, but he almost came on, but didn't quite. But anyway, what he said in a big interview he gave to the Daily Telegraph on Saturday was that Britain has fallen off a cliff, that everything is going wrong, nothing works, roads are full of potholes, we're being charged fortunes for terrible local services, everything is going down the pan, that somehow we've fallen off a cliff. He blames socialism, and he blames Keir Starmer's government. What do you think about that? We'll talk to Ralph Hadel Mansoon after the break about it. But what do you think about that? 0344 499 1000, because I'm going to be taking your calls later on, also playing some of your WhatsApp voice notes and reading some of your messages. So I'd like to know, do you think Britain's fallen off a cliff, and do you blame Keir Starmer? Do you blame socialism? And you can call on all the other issues as well. 0344 499 1000. That when we come back, stick around.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now there's a new series of Clarkson's farm, Jeremy Clarkson, on his diddly squat farm, and it's just hitting Amazon Prime, so you can see it there. And the reason I'm plugging it is because the next time he wants to plug a series, maybe he'll give me an interview. We've been asking. He nearly did. He nearly did, but not quite. But it is a great show. So before we go over to Rafe Hadel-Banku, historian and broadcaster, let's have a little look at a clip from Clarkson's farm.
I want to make it plain that I am absolutely thrilled to bits for Caleb. But he has left me just a little bit in the lurch. Please, come on. It's freezing cold and soaking wet. Come on. I've got to be honest, I'm having a tottering time. While Caleb's away, I'm going to need a hand. You've seen Clarkson's farm?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you?
No.
I'm on need someone to help me. She's brilliant.
Should I trim your eyebrows?
What's the matter with my eyebrows?
Are you kidding? That's so tiny. What should we call it?
Richard Ham. You know you're in the show.
Well, that's completely irrelevant to what I want to now discuss with historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Banku. Welcome to the show, Rafe.
Always a pleasure, Kevin.
Now, what I wanted to talk about, he's been given promotional interviews for this excellent show. I do recommend it, genuinely. He's talking about Britain. He says Britain, in the past few years, has, in his opinion, fallen off a cliff. And he said that now we have hit rock bottom. He basically says nothing works. Potholes in our roads, terrible services, the NHS, complete mess. Nothing works well in this country. And we've fallen off a cliff. We've hit rock bottom. Who does Mr. Clarkson blame for this? Well, he says this is all down to socialism. And then he narrows in on our socialist leader, Keir Starmer, who he said manages to be annoying even when he's not being annoying. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to say. And I think there is a sense among millions of people in this country that something's going wrong with this country. We have gone downhill. It seems to be a worse place to live than, shall we say, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. I blame the Tories for the decline a great deal, but I do think he's got a good point that now the socialists have got their hands on the helm. We're in big trouble, and he's blaming Keir Starmer and Keir Starmer's government. But do you agree with what he's saying, that there is this pervasive sense that Britain has somehow fallen off a cliff into an abyss of decline, and that we've now hit rock bottom? What do you feel, Rafe?
Look, I don't care if you're left wing or you're right wing, if you're woke or unwoke. You'd have to have lived in a cave for the past few years not to know that Jeremy Clarkson is absolutely right. Britain is broken. It's not due to Keir Starmer and socialism. It's due to this uniparty. It's Labour and the Tories, and the great harm that they've caused to this nation for the entire 21st century. Let's make no mistake about it. The 21st century, 25 years we've had of national decline, and it's been particularly pronounced within the last decade, certainly since 2008 and the credit crunch. But in the last decade, people really have this sense of decay and stagnation all around them, and it's on the local level, it's on the national level, it's cultural, it's social, it pervades, it infects every aspect of our society. The young people today are the first generation to have a poorer quality of life than their parents.
Yeah.
We see our neighbourhoods are deteriorating, potholes in the roads, council services reduced, bins overflowing, high street shops are boarded up, but there's a housing crisis, there's a social care crisis, immigration crisis, cost of living crisis. You know, the NHS is in perpetual crisis, but there's also this wider sense of hopelessness and frustration that nobody in authority has a clue how to fix any of it. But even worse than that, they think that our leaders have been actively complicit in damaging the nation. And there's this sort of feeling now that all of our institutions, the political class, the media, the police, the civil service, none of them have our interests at heart.
Exactly
the interests
right.
of the British people.
That's exactly what it is, Rafe. That somehow or other, successive governments, right up to this one, which may well be the worst, have not been spending money, the national finances, on us, on the people. They've been spending it on their own ideologies, on their own virtue signalling, on their own cause célèbre. I mean, Clarkson says in this interview in the Telegraph, he said, for example, he said, London's really suffering, I think. You see streets and think, God, this was thriving not that long ago. Now it's all boarded up. Or charity shops. As you walk around for the first time in all of London, you're conscious about not being on your phone. Be careful. It's a big change. It's socialism. The sewage doesn't work. Mobile phone coverage has got worse. And the potholes. He goes on to say, I know I'm sounding like an old person now, but it is shocking. I don't know what they do with the money. Well, I would say, particularly now we've got these Tories, but the socialists, this Labour lot, but the Tories weren't much better. I think what's going wrong with this particular government is this. Their entire philosophy is this. Tax the private sector to the hilt. Sort of, in a sense, rob hard-working individuals and successful businesses of as much money as possible and give it to your rapidly increasing public sector, who don't do very much, who don't even bother to go to work. They all work from home, servicing ministries that are completely empty all the time. So you take all the money that innovative, spirited, entrepreneurial people make, and you give it to people who sit around at home working from home and don't go to the Ministry of Defence or wherever they work. I think it's that. I think that's one of the problems. The money is all going to the public sector and it's not being spent on the people of this country.
Well, it's a good point you make. You know, when we were growing up, Kevin, we always had this stereotype of French bureaucracy, right? That the French state was bloated, this huge left-wing bureaucracy that they had there. I just saw a stat very recently, in the last couple of weeks. The British civil service is larger than the French.
Is that right?
Yeah, this
Because
is unbelievable.
their civil service is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a more bloated public sector here than France.
That's ridiculous.
This happened not under Labour. This happened under the Tories. This is why I talk about this uniparty, this elite class, who actually aren't that different from each other, and they don't have our interests at heart. As you quite rightly said, they're going after. Remember, right? Boris Johnson and net zero. This was the Tories were more green than the Labour Party was as well. Remember that. And of course, fundamentally, it was the Tories who brought in mass immigration as well. And you have to understand our low productivity. Nobody links our productivity is the greatest crisis we face. That's why our economy is stagnant. Nobody has been brave enough to link that to immigration, let alone the fact, of course, that we've had essentially low-skilled immigration coming in and the burden that places on the taxpayer because they are a net burden from the moment that they set foot on this country. £7.5 billion a year is paid out to 1 million foreigners through universal credit. That's just one thing entirely. And of course, because of that, you see all of our public services, our GPs, our hospitals, our schools, housing, all under the pressure and the weight of all of that. And of course, we've had the furlough scheme, of course, where we kept the young, physically active people who could have been working, who of course would not have been affected by COVID, just may have been sick for a few days. Only the elderly and those with comorbidities were dying from COVID, and we kept them at home. And all that money that was supposed to have gone to levelling up the Red Wall. You remember Michael Gove was the levelling up minister, and the Red Wall lent Boris Johnson that vote in 2019 to improve the infrastructure, the railways and the neighbourhoods of the north. All that money was spent on the furlough scheme, and now, of course, we're broke and we've got inflation and so forth. And added to all of that, of course, we have this constant war of attrition to erode our national self-confidence. So we see around us decay, but all we're seeing from the political class, from the media, from our cultural institutions is this never-ending attack on British culture and history and identity, which just saps the soul. And so intellectually, mentally, spiritually, physically, everything just seems broken in a spiral of decline, you know. And our towns and cities across this country, people watching the show, they go out on their streets, their own towns and cities bear no resemblance to the places that they grew up in. They are living in a foreign town quite often, and quite often they're becoming increasingly third world towns.
Let's talk about absolutely, and towns that, as you quite rightly say, people who grew up in them don't recognise anymore because, frankly, they've allowed a kind of cultural invasion. And you have lots of cities in the north, or places in the north now, you know, that where, you know, great swathes of the population don't even speak English. Completely different culture to us. So there's that. Now, I think one of the other aspects of this sense of decline is, you know, this country's, this nation's addiction to welfare culture, to benefits. You talk about axing benefits or cutting benefits. People say, you heartless SOB, oh, you know, you're awful, you're inhumane. Do you know what we spend every year on welfare in this country? It's about £303 billion. £303 billion. Now, I'm not saying any proper Western democracy should look after its vulnerable people. It should look after those who deserve welfare. Unemployment, fair enough, as long as you look for a job. You know, we should help all of those people. But frankly, this country, I mean, we give huge amounts of welfare to people who've got jobs. We give loads of benefits to people who are working. I mean, we are addicted to welfare, aren't we? You take a country like America, which is far from addicted to welfare. Look at its economy, look at ours. Look at the happiness of the people in America, look at the happiness of the people here. Benefits and welfare don't make a nation happy. I think they spoil a nation.
Yeah, and of course we're at the stage now where we've got probably 3 generations of people who have been born into that benefit culture. So they don't actually have a history, they don't have a background of a working culture from which to draw some sort of inspiration. All that they know is the culture, the society of benefits. And, you know, that's one of course, that one of the arguments for mass immigration was, oh, well, the indigenous British population, they won't run restaurants, they won't work in the NHS, they won't be cleaners. We have to import these people too. I'm sorry, you know, for hundreds of years, we had British people working as waiters, working as cleaners, working as charwomen, working cleaning lavatories and so forth. What's changed, of course, is there's no incentive for these people to do it because they can earn more money from benefits.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we need to incentivize people to go and do those jobs, but that means you need to pay them a decent wage. And what's happened is big business has been very happy to flood the nation with migrants who will work for a low wage. And so the jobs traditionally filled by British people are now so underpaid that, of course, they don't want to do that. You need to cut benefits so that people get more money from going into the workplace. But, of course, you need to improve pay and working conditions so that people can actually get job satisfaction. But the thing is, though, if you go to places like Liverpool, for example, I was in Liverpool recently in the hotel, all the chambermaids were Liverpudlians. Everybody working in the hospital were Liverpudlians. Good. You know, so one of the things, when you get to areas where actually there isn't a migrant community, you do have white British doing those jobs. But it's in the rest of the country, it seems as if people just rely on migrant workers to do the jobs that their grandparents would do.
And, you know, ever since I was young, and that's a long time ago, I've heard politicians for donkeys, decades now, saying we have to make work pay. We cannot continue it being more profitable to be on welfare and benefits than it is to work. They've been saying this for 50 years and it is still a massive problem. I think another problem, as we discuss the decline of Britain, let's hope let's hope one day we can get a government that can turn this great nation around.
Fingers crossed. We've waited a long time.
Yeah, well, let's keep our fingers crossed. You never know. But I think one of our problems is culture is this prioritization of what I might describe as woke cobblers over the practical realities of running things properly. We've got left-wing teachers brainwashing generations of kids, churning out generations of morons who think being kind, trans rights, climate change are all far more important than going to work and paying the bills. So we have a real problem there as well. It's all, you know, being kind and wokery are all very well. I'm not that keen on it all myself, but they are being prioritized over, as I say, running things properly. And that is a massive problem. What we're witnessing, I think, bit by bit, is the mass destruction of traditional British common sense.
You're absolutely right. And this is the fundamental difference to the past, which you've highlighted. You know, Britain went through terrible economic hardship in the past. After the Second World War, you had rationing right through the 50s. In the 1970s, we were the sick man of Europe. But back then, you know, you always have economic peaks and troughs. We were still culturally intact. People had the same values, they had the same beliefs. There were class distinctions between the working class and others, but actually we were a cohesive whole. We had the same outlook on the world, and now we don't. We have completely different views. We have the most radically left-wing youth in history whose moral compass is completely different to people even just 10 years older. On all sorts of policy issues, we've never seen such a disconnected youth as we have now, plus mass immigration, people who don't have any buy-in, who don't have any loyalty to this country, or they don't have any reason to feel proud to be British. So it's very difficult, actually, to recover from our state as we did in the 70s and in the 50s. Now, in 1979, we had Margaret Thatcher and her economic advisor, Keith Joseph, who unleashed upon sick Britain this economic revolution that fundamentally changed the face of Britain. What we need now is a similar person who can do the same thing, but not just for the economy, for our culture and for our society. That's a huge task, but we need a revolution in this land to shake us out of this malaise and fundamentally transform how we see ourselves and how we function as a country. And I don't see, unfortunately, anybody on the political landscape who's up to that task.
Well, I'm not going to add to that, Rafe, because that was beautifully summarised, our crisis summarised there. And yes, we need someone. We need a hero to save this nation. Rafe Heidelmanku, historian and broadcaster, thank you so much. So, everybody, what do you think of that? I mean, we've got to talk about this, haven't we? Clarkson's right. It's so obvious that we basically don't discuss it enough. You know, we are in a country that is in a state of terrible decline. Nothing works. Everything's going wrong. We can't even police our own borders, just letting in thousands of illegal foreigners and giving them hotels, changing the face of this country. Generations of school kids coming out, you know, full of wokery and be kind, not so keen on going out and earning a living and paying the bills. It's all going wrong, I think, and Rafe is right. We need a hero to come in and save this country, politically, culturally, and in every respect. Your thoughts, 0344499 1000. When we come back, the rest of the show is for you, all the way until 10 o'clock. So I've got lots of phone calls, I've got texts, I've got WhatsApp voice notes. Let's talk. I really want to hear what you feel, moving on from what I was discussing with Rafe there. What do you feel about these two coppers and their tasering of a 92-year-old man? Didn't just taser him, they beat him up with a truncheon, or they call them batons now, don't they? They beat him up with a baton, then they pepper sprayed him, then they tasered him. 92 years old, he's got one leg. Heroes, eh? Dynamic duo. One female copper, one male copper. To hell with them. To hell with them. What is the matter with them? Honestly, let me know. 0344499 1000. Also, What else are we going to talk about? Why don't you give me a call about Lindsay Hoyle? Don't you think he's spending too much money? He is the Speaker of the House. You know, that guy goes, order, order, order. Well, he's now jetting around the world, spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, more than £250,000, flash hotels, private jets, private chauffeurs, you name it. Also, he has increased his staff from 12 to 21. So this is a Speaker. The bloke who sits there, order, order, 21 staff. What do they do? I mean, I suppose they're probably very busy booking all his travel, booking his plane journeys, business or first class only, thank you very much. His expensive hotels, his meals, his chauffeurs. Perhaps they're fully up to here booking Lindsay's global jet setting. I don't know, but what really do they do? 21 people. And why does he think that the Speaker of the House is some kind of international diplomat? He's not, is he? Why is he doing this? Let me know. 03444991000. And do you like it when you see all these cop vans with LGBTQ colours all over them up in Liverpool, as we were discussing earlier? Black Lives Matter, plus quotes from black activists and all that. Yeah, I've got nothing against Black Lives Matter. No, it's not Black Lives Matter, sorry. I've got a lot against Black Lives Matter, a bunch of crooks. What do they call them? But buy larger mansions. Because half the people who work for Black Lives Matter took the money that people donated after George Floyd and bought big houses for themselves. Black History Month. You know, so up in Liverpool, you know, as that carnage was unfolding the other day, all the police vehicles are all emblazoned with Black History Month, and then some quote from some black activist. You know, I've got nothing against all of that stuff. But what's it got to do with policing? Why are they spending our money, taxpayers' money, on this claptrap? Why? Why? In what way does that help them fight crime? Don't know. Do you? 03444991000. That when we come back.
He's basically in bed with Keir Starmer on this one. It is fundamentally unfair to say to people who maybe only have 2 children themselves because they can't afford to have any more, who go out to work early in the morning, do a long hard day's work, pay their taxes, why should those people subsidise others who perhaps don't work yet nonetheless have large numbers of children who they can't afford to support themselves? Why should hard-working taxpayers subsidise those people? The public, by the way, overwhelmingly support the 2-child cap, including 84% of Reform voters. So Nigel Farage has got this completely wrong.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just a couple of messages before we go to the phone. This is from Nicola in London about Just Stop Hoyle, Lindsay Hoyle. Totally agree with you, Kevin, about the abject cowardice of MPs in not taking Hoyle to task, not least because he allows Starmer to totally dodge most answers which render PMQ's Prime Minister's Question Time pointless, no longer any check and balance on power. Now, look, about this thing, I'm not accusing Lindsay Hoyle of being biased as a speaker. I'm not going there. A lot of people say he does tend to favour Labour. As I said to Isabel Oakeshott earlier, I still don't quite understand why he told MPs they couldn't speak about Southport and the suspect after those horrific murders and the arrest of that monster, that little semi-human animal person who I won't bother to name. I don't understand why he told the House not to speak there, but this isn't, you know, he would deny that he is in any way biased, and I think generally speaking, you know, he's not that bad a speaker on that front. I'm not really going there. I'm not criticising him on the conducting of his job, how he does it in the House. What I am asking is, why has this guy redefined the role of Speaker into some sort of jet-setting international diplomat? You know, going round what he says, selling or talking about, promoting the wonders of speaker-led democracy, talking to other speakers, talking to other parliaments. You know, so what? You don't have to do that. Attending conferences to talk about the role of the speaker. Here's an idea. Don't bother. Won't make any difference whether you go or not. Save us some money. Do it by Zoom. Try that. How about that? So that's what I'm asking questions about. And I'm also asking why, you know, why has he got like 11 more staff than he had 2 years ago? Why is his staff bill, wages bill, why has it gone up from 550,000 to over £1 million? Why did he spend £7 million refurbishing his parliamentary apartment? Very swish place the Speaker gets to live in, the Palace of Westminster. Apparently, they say it's got the best views in London, all the way down the River Thames. So when he moved in, that was all refurbished, £7 million. Plus, at taxpayers' expense, there's a big painting, a portrait of the great man hanging there in the Westminster corridors of power. I mean, he's a one-man money-spending machine, and it's our money. So, again, I'm not necessarily saying, oh, this is wrong, this is corrupt. I'm asking for a full explanation. And we're never going to get a full explanation because of our MPs, are we? Because they're too scared to get on the wrong side of the Speaker. So there is a big problem there. So let me know what you think. 03444991000. Let's go to our next caller. New caller. I love a new caller. That's Angela from West Lothian. Hi, Angela.
Hi there.
What would you like to say?
Hi, it was just about the pensioner who was tasered.
Yeah, it's awful, eh?
So I am a qualified mental health nurse who specialised with the elderly and those with cognitive impairment and dementia.
Right.
I also, at one point, managed a nursing home of over 120 residents.
So you know what you're talking about?
Well, I'd like to think so.
Yeah, no. I have no doubt you know what you're talking about.
So I've dealt with numerous incidents, much more significant in risk than what that man posed.
Well, difficult old people who you had to deal with, yeah?
People who were agitated, angry, for various reasons, whether it be they were experiencing physical conditions which caused extra mental disturbance,
right,
or or staff had actually wound them up.
Did you call the police, Angela?
They reacted.
Did you call the police?
Never. Never.
See, that's the point, isn't it?
Absolutely never. At any point would I have ever called the police, unless there was significant.
So, yeah,
risk.
something serious.
But in this particular situation, the risk was so low.
It wasn't it?
That
Yeah.
I'm just.
It was a butter knife. It was a butter knife, and also, you know, I mean, I'm not going to go down the road of directly criticising the staff for calling the police. I mean, I can sort of understand it, but it strikes me.
No, Kevin, I actually will criticise.
Well, no, you know more about it, so go on.
It was 30 minutes. They spent 30 minutes trying to de-escalate the situation. 30 minutes with someone who is 90-odd years old.
92 years old,
with a degree of cognitive impairment is nothing.
Yeah.
I have spent 3-4 hours de-escalating a situation, but that's what you do because that is what the situation requires.
Angela, I'd have just walked over to that guy and say, give me the knife. And if he didn't give it to me, I'd have grabbed his wrist and taken it out of his hand. He quite clearly, he's got one leg. He's only got one leg. It's just ridiculous.
So often in these situations, the one thing you say is, come on, fella.
Exactly. Bit of common sense.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Come on, pal. What you don't do is you don't confront them and you don't escalate the situation.
Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, I'll take your point about the staff. Perhaps they could have done more. But what do you think, Angela, about the way those coppers treated Douglas, that poor old guy? I mean, I just think it's one of the most shocking things I've ever seen, considering he's 92 and had one leg. Of course, poor old guy's dead now. He died 22 days after that taser attack. Taser attacks aren't very good for your heart. You know what I mean? What do you think about the way the police treated him?
I don't think it would have mattered if he was 92 or 62. The outcome would have been the same because someone wasn't coming back from that in that sort of physical, sort of disability and those sort of problems. It was absolutely disgusting. I watched it on the 19th of May and I actually messaged into you on Talk on that day and said, can you cover this? Because my blood ran cold watching it. It was disgusting. It was bully boy tactics, absolutely no humility whatsoever, when what they should have been doing was, hang on a minute, we've got an old man here.
There's no common sense there. That's my
degree. Absolutely.
Where's the common sense? Where's the common sense? You know what they were doing, Angela? They were going strictly by the book. If the suspect won't hand you the knife or won't then open fire with your taser. Well, maybe a sensible copper will go, wait a minute, this guy's 92 and he's only got one leg. Maybe we'll keep the taser in our pockets. It's a disgrace. Angela, listen, I've got to move on now, but really good to talk to you from your knowledgeable standpoint, and keep in touch. Call me again. Angela there, new caller from West Lothian. We better go to break in a second, but I've got lots of WhatsApp voice notes. This first one is from Scott, and it's about our friend Keir Starmer. Take it away, Scott.
Evening, Kev. Scott here from London. Good to have you back, mate. Your average Joe, your average worker, everyday worker, your postman, your mechanic, your plasterer, painter and decorator, scaffolder, butcher, baker, local shop owners. This government think that we are all complete and utter morons, idiots, can't handle the truth, can't process it, can't deal with it. When the irony is, there's only one idiot, and that is Keir Starmer. The man is just so detached from the average Joe in this country, the backbone of this country, the one that keeps this country ticking over. Starmer out, mate. Get shot. Can't get rid of him quick enough. Cheers, Kev. Bye.
I agree, Scott. Absolutely agree. Really good WhatsApp voice note there from Scott. Clearly, just another guy who's completely at the end of his tether with this Prime Minister and this government. Something's going badly wrong. Before we go to break, here's another WhatsApp voice note. This is from Kate, and this one is about, if you live in London, it's about our wonderful Mayor, Sadiq Khan.
Hi, Kev. Kate from Leeds. Good show. I'd like to know what Khan's been taking himself, because this man is absolutely an idiot. Let's face it, drugs don't just stop there, do they? When they try it, cannabis, a little bit of cannabis, oh, that's all right, let's do something else, let's try something else, and before long, it's heroin and everything else. I just wonder how he'd feel if it were one of his kids. Is a disgrace. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kate. My view on legalising cannabis and all that is frankly, it won't make much difference. I suppose if we decriminalising it is what he called for. He didn't call for the legalisation. He called for decriminalising. So if some kid or anybody gets caught with a bucket full of grass or smoking a joint, then the police don't do anything about it. So in other words, exactly the situation we've got now. What he said won't make any difference. The whole of this city, London, stinks of weed. It just stinks, that aroma, that sort of heady, aromatic, sort of slightly acidic smell. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. The police are not detaining or pulling up or arresting anyone for grass. So it's already that situation. If you legalise it, you open a Pandora's box, because then you have to start opening shops. And as Isabel Oakshott was saying earlier, you know, you go to these places where it's been legalised and everybody's completely off their bonces, you know, so there are all sorts of problems. So I think, thank you, Mr Mayor, but no thanks. Right, let's go to break. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your WhatsApp voice notes and some of your messages. Stick around, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Go to the phones in just a second. Let's play a couple of WhatsApp voice notes first. This one is from Alid, and it is on Labour's comedy MP, Mike Tapp.
When the people of Dover vote for a Labour MP, then we lose all hope. What were they thinking of?
Well, actually, Alan, it's always been a kind of marginal seat. It's flip-flopped between the Tories and Labour. I think I'm right in saying that before this guy, this clown, Mike Tapp, it was Natalie Elphicke, who was a Tory, and she was the wife of Charlie Elphicke, another Tory MP, who went to jail for sexual shenanigans. So it's flip-flopped historically between Labour and Tories. It's a kind of a marginal. It's interesting. But it should, well, I suppose right now the people of Dover, they should be voting against the migrant crisis or for someone who will solve the migrant crisis. And certainly Mike Tapp and his Labour Party aren't about to do that anytime soon, are they? One more WhatsApp voice before we go to the phone. Sue, on the tasering of that poor old pensioner.
Good evening, Kevin. Sue from Farnham here. I saw that when it first happened, and apparently he had taken, or he was given medication because he wasn't well, and it had a funny effect on him, i.e. it's made him do silly things like this, and the care home couldn't cope with it. I want to point out, I'm a 76-year-old woman. I could have taken that knife off him. Absolutely thuggery by the police. Goodbye.
Really good. Thank you, Sue. Exactly right. Exactly right. So Sue's 76 years old, saying what I said. She said she would have just walked over and taken it off him. So would I have done. Come on, you silly old sod. You know, okay, maybe he's on some kind of medication, but it doesn't matter. He's 92. He's got one leg. I mean, come on. What the hell is going on here? The world's going crazy. Those coppers. What's some heroes? Dynamic duo. Oh, yeah. Took that guy out. 92 years. One leg. I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not a funny situation. It's an absolute disgrace. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Bex in Essex. Hi, Bex. You want to talk about marijuana? What would you like to say?
Hi, Kev. Hope you're well. I hate Khan more than you could imagine. But I do agree that they should decriminalise personal use levels of marijuana. I don't take marijuana myself, never have done. I don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol. But
just say no, Bex. Just say no. You just say no. You know, that's the slogan about drugs. But when you say about, see, if you legalise small amounts, then you legalise it. You legalise it. So what's Khan saying, though? Just sorry to interrupt. But what Khan is saying, he's not actually saying legalise it. He's saying decriminalise it, which means you don't get arrested for possession. In fact, what you're talking about is basically it. Now, you know, that's already the situation.
I mean, yeah, it is already the situation, so I don't really know why he's bothered mentioning it. But what I wanted to mention is I think alcohol has a worse impact on society than consuming marijuana. Like, I've personally seen the effects of it. I think we've all seen the effects of what alcohol can do, potentially. I think that's a lot worse than marijuana. So, but at the same time, I think if they're going to decriminalise smoking marijuana or, you know, being able to have a certain amount of it, then they should also decriminalise, you know, free speech and writing tweets on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, they should prioritise worrying about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, bunging people in jail for hurty words on social media. They should prioritise doing something about that over doing something about marijuana. I just think basically dope smoking, it's annoying, it's ridiculous. The levels of it in London are off the scale. People smoking joints, you see them on their way to work in the morning and stuff like that. You know, that's what we're stuck with. And I think there are more important things to deal with than decriminalising marijuana. If you legalise it, you open up a whole different Pandora's box. And you're right about alcohol. I would say alcohol, you know, is underestimated for its dangerous effects on society.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a lot of bad effects with multiple people in my life where alcohol has completely destroyed and torn families apart multiple times over. But at the same time, obviously, you can't. Well, I'm not going to say you should ban alcohol, but obviously, I just feel like it's really petty if someone was to get arrested if they're carrying a small amount of marijuana.
Yeah, but I think that is the deal. Yeah, I agree with you, Bex. But I think that is the deal already. If you're smoking a joint, a copper's not going to arrest you. If you've got I don't know, a quarter of an ounce or whatever, eighth of an ounce in your pocket, they won't arrest you. That's already the situation. It's just
they'll probably take it off you and then take it home.
Yeah, exactly. Take it over to smoke it in the evening. But that is just Khan virtue signalling his left-wing credentials. Bex, excellent call. Thank you for ringing. Call me again. Bex in Essex. Let's go to break. When I come back, I've got a couple more WhatsApp voice notes and I'll take some more calls and read some more messages. So stay tuned.
I do not condone drug taking or encourage it in any way, shape or form. In fact, most drug takers that I've come across are the most tiresome and boring people imaginable. But this proposal is doing partly the right thing for exactly the wrong reason. What we need to do, and I'm sure you're going to disagree with me, is we need to legalise and regulate every single illegal drug.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
By the way, we've got a big exclusive tomorrow night. It's an interview I've already, as we say in the business, pre-recorded. I've already done it. I did sat down for half an hour yesterday, funnily enough, with Elon Musk's dad, Errol Musk. Fascinating interview. This is the life story of the world's richest man through the eyes of his father. So we're going to play some of that tomorrow. It'll be on my TV show, What Just Happened. That will be on Friday night at 9 o'clock. But we'll play some excerpts tomorrow and get into that. So very interesting man. Very, very interesting man. Right. Let's go back to the phones in just a second, but first WhatsApp voice notes. Here's one from Tom again on that poor old boy Douglas who got tasered by the cops.
Kev, regarding this elderly gentleman, 92, being tasered and walloped with a truncheon, what I want to know is, did they actually arrest him afterwards and cart him away and question him at the police station? That's what I want to know.
Actually, that's a damn good question, Tom. I don't know. I probably haven't read into it enough. But either way, at 92, I don't think he should be arrested. But he certainly shouldn't be tasered. I keep laughing about this. It isn't funny, but it's so ludicrous. You know, two cops, a female cop and a male cop, in the prime of life, you know, strapping police officers, beating this old guy up with their baton, boom, 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 pepper spraying him and then tasering him. And he's got a butter knife the size of my thumb in his hand. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. I just don't get it. We might as well finish with the WhatsApp voice notes now. This is the last one. Again, it's on the same topic, and this is Peter.
Enjoying the show as usual. Regarding the elderly gentleman in the care home, was it the same force that by chance thought that the best way to tackle a cow was to run it over? Or perhaps the elderly gentleman was a bit too Brexity with some of his reading material. Not sure, but yeah, ridiculous. Cheers.
Yeah, it probably would be that. Yeah, he's a right winger. You know, he reads The Spectator, so he deserved to be tasered. Yeah, you're talking there, Peter, about that incident. Was it last summer? I can't remember. A year or so ago, when the cops in Staines, the beautifully named town to the west of London, on the banks of the Thames, a little calf gets out of the farm, running around a housing area, you know, where residents live. I can see that's a bit of a problem. How do they deal with it? They drove at it at full pace with their police car. Nearly killed the poor little thing. Thank God it survived. But, you know, once again, this is a ridiculous solution. Don't drive your police car at that poor cow, that poor little cow. What's the matter with you? And then they come and say, oh, they did the right thing. No, they didn't. They did the wrong thing, quite clearly. Common sense. We need cops with common sense. Right, let's go back to the phones, and it's that time, folks. You know, that lady who's on Talk more than me, more than Julia Hartley-Brewer, more than Mike Graham, more than all of us put together. It's Georgina from London. Hi, Georgina.
Good evening, my darling. I don't think I'm on that much. I'd love to be on permanently, but there you go. I'm ringing in about Mr. Khan.
And the cannabis, yeah.
Well, I've got a very old-fashioned view, and it probably won't go down well, but I'm going to say my piece, Kevin, because I feel very strongly about London. Mr. Khan should save his breath to cool his porridge. He obviously can't see the chronic social breakdown that, you know, largely is due to the drug use in London. This man has been allowed to single-handedly destroy our beautiful city, and it was once the great city of London. Drug taking of any kind has never and will never be the norm. And it's totally irresponsible to even contemplate, you know, having to decriminalise any kind of drug. This is utter madness. To look at London now, from where I stand as an old girl, it's totally unrecognisable to what it was in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And now here we are in 2025, and this beautiful city of ours resembles what I would consider to be a run-down, neglected, unloved, third world den of iniquity.
I'll tell you what it's turning into, Georgina. It's turning into something akin to New York in the 1970s, when that metropolis was literally falling apart at the seams. The buildings were falling over. And then along came Mayor Giuliani, wasn't it, who just said, right, from now on, I catch you, or the police catch you breaking a small pane of glass, you get nicked. You go to jail, zero tolerance, and it started to sort that city out. But drug use around the country, in this country, I mean, you know, I come from a sort of generation, I'm a bit of an old liberal when it comes to drug use. I kind of think, well, if you want to take drugs, what business is of mine? But I do think now that drug use in this country generally, let's not just limit it to London, is so prevalent, it's so massive, everybody's taking drugs, that it is a problem. You know, there was a time when the only people you'd find taking cocaine were in the flash private members clubs and the flash restaurants here in the West End in London. Now, you know, go to a pub in Walsall, they're all lining up at Cubicle 2 to do their line and all that.
It's terrifying.
It is.
It's terrifying, Kevin. What we need to start having very straight talks without fear of regulation of speech, to have a thorough cleanse of our city and our country, a cleanse of both drugs and criminality, to find someone who's going to get the job done. I'm sick and tired of namsy-pamsy excuses, giving up and giving in. Things have to be, you know, things have been allowed to deteriorate, Kevin, to a level where visitors from abroad, unless they're coming over in dinghies, that is, don't want to come to London on vacation because of drugs and crime. And this, in turn, is affecting our economy. We need someone with a love and a passion for not only our great city of London, but the whole country, who strive to make it greater still, instead of one that's going to thrust us into an oubliette in which we're never going to climb out of. You know, if this destruction, Kevin, of our moral values because of bad governing is allowed to continue, I fear that everything our once great nation stood for is going to become extinct. And I don't want that.
And I agree with you. As I say, I come from a generation that tends to be a bit lackadaisical about drugs. You know, we grew up in a haze of them. But I would not be against a kind of serious crackdown because I think the drug use, the widespread, you know, breaking of our drugs laws is pernicious, and that a crackdown on drug use would be, you know, a kind of microcosm of a new approach to a better disciplined country, because it's falling apart at the seams at the moment. But Georgina, you as always have articulated that awful decline brilliantly. Always great to talk to you. Thank you. Georgina in London, the great Georgina. Let's go straight to another call. Let's talk to Keith in Banbury. Keith, you want to talk about Farage?
Yes, Kev. The press conference yesterday, when I got home from work, I watched it. I was quite shocked that pretty much word for word what he said is what I said just over 2 months ago on talkTV about promoting the family way of life and rewarding the family way of life. Because one of the big issues is migration. The reason why we've got so much migration and have done under subsequent governments, Conservative and whatever Labour, is because we don't have children, and we haven't done for the last 25 years. We're having 1.4 children when it used to be 4 children to 7 children. Like my parents were 7, one of 7. I was one of 4. So he's doing small steps to try and fix things, and he's thinking of the future. I'm not a Reform member, but
the thing is, Keith. I grew up in a time, and I'm sure you did too. It was always like one of the bedrocks of government policy, particularly the Tories, but all of the parties, would always give tax breaks to young people who got married. They enshrined the institution of marriage by generous taxing. And then, of course, tax breaks for having children. Countries need to produce children. We have got a birth rate crisis right now. Somewhere down the line, governments of this country forgot all of that, and they stopped encouraging marriage. They stopped encouraging childbirth through tax breaks. Nigel Farage is proposing a return to that basic backbone of the way we used to govern this country. Why do you think it fell away by the wayside?
Kev, many years ago, you know as well as I do that decisions were made in a smoke-filled room, and there was a big problem with people in our country having children. Margaret Thatcher came along, and she made people basic conservative values, actually, that you need to reward hard work and be able to be proud of anything you can be achieved in your life. So then we had by-council houses, middle class was established, and they stopped having children because they couldn't afford it. They'd rather pay a mortgage. We need to get things back to how they were. It wasn't broken. We don't need to fix it. We just need to revisit it.
Absolutely, Keith. Also, marriage is not a bad institution. I don't know why we've let that fall by the wayside as well. Keith, I've got to go now, but great call. Thank you very much. Now, listen, Petria Hoskin will be in just a little while to tell you what she's got lined up for you for your delectation from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. Oh, no, I'm lying. She's already here. Hello, Petri.
I thought... Have you not seen me? How are you? It's good to have you back.
Yes, I've been getting up at 3 a.m. So
nice.
It's good to be not doing that anymore. Yeah.
No, it's not. That's not good. I don't know how
I enjoy the show. I love doing the show, but getting up at 3 a.m. It's a bit of a kick.
It really is. I don't know how people do it for as long as they do.
I know. Those people who do it forever. Yeah.
I know, ridiculous.
What you got coming up anyway?
Right, there's a victims and courts bill currently going through at the moment. So it's at committee stage, and it's about. I mean, this story really grabbed me because I thought this was absolutely awful. Did you know that a paedophile accused and convicted of the worst offences a paedophile can be accused of still has parental rights over their own children as long as they didn't rape their own children?
Oh, great. That's all right then.
Exactly.
Do you know
Isn't that shocking?
It is shocking, but you know what it plays into? And this has happened several times. Only a couple of months ago was the last occasion. These paedophiles, asylum seekers, migrants who come to this country, then they get caught, sexually abusing children, child sex abuse. Go to jail for, shall we say, 5 years, 4 years, 2 years, whatever. They come out of jail, and this has happened several times, and they're not deported. They're allowed to stay because of their right to a family life because they have children themselves. So my point always is that person, that paedophile, is not only a danger to all of our children and therefore should be deported, he's also a danger to his own children.
Well, it'd be interesting. I mean, the Tories put through a bill to say that couldn't happen anymore. It's been weak.